Good morning and welcome to this Standing Policy Committee on Water, Waste and Environment for September 9th, 2024. My name is Evan Duncan. I'm the chair of this committee. I'm joined here today by Councillors Dobson, Gilroy, and Santos. Before we get started here with our agenda, including appeals hearings, I'd like to acknowledge that we are on Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Innu, Dakota people, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water does come from Shoal Lake 40 First Nations in Treaty 3 territory. And just a quick comment as well, I'd just like to put on the record, thank you to outgoing chair, Councillor Brian Mays, for his service on this committee and his work on the Executive Policy Committee. I'd also like to take a quick moment here to acknowledge the passing of Grand Chief Kathy Merrick, who left us in the Indigenous community, but all Manitobans far too early. And just a quick moment to acknowledge her life and the importance that she had to Manitobans. Thank you. I'll pass it over to our clerk to get us into our appeals hearings for this morning. Thank you. And before we do that, I'll call for a motion to approve the last meetings, and that's Councillor Santos. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous carried. Thank you.
In accordance with the City of Winnipeg Charter and the Development Procedures Bylaw, the process the committee will follow is the appellant will be heard first, followed by those in support of the appeal. Next, those registered in opposition are heard, followed by those registered for information. Finally, the appellant may return to speak in rebuttal to comments made. However, no new information is permitted. Please note that when your name is called, it is your opportunity to speak. However, you are not obligated to do so. Item 1 is an appeal under the City of Winnipeg Sewer Bylaw number 106 of 2018 at 889 Borbank Street. All participants have been muted and will only be permitted to speak when called upon. Once you have been heard, you can either remain in the Zoom meeting or leave and continue to watch live via the city's YouTube channel. If any Zoom participants are currently watching the live meeting on YouTube, please mute the YouTube audio now. And if there's a brief overview from the public service.
Please.
Yes, I'm joined here today with the manager of our Environmental Standards Division, Ms. Renee Grissel. So she'll walk through a presentation on the order.
Morning. Oh, sorry. No, it's okay, just so that the Zoom participants can see as well. Here. Thank you.
Okay, good morning. This morning we have an appeal from Action Plumbing under the Sewer Bylaw 106/2018. Okay, so agenda for today, what I'll go over is what our hauled wastewater program is, the licensing and bylaw requirements for this program, the account history and enforcement history with appeal with Action Plumbing, and our recommendation. Okay, so we have a hauled wastewater program under the sewer bylaw. So at the North End Sewage Treatment Plant, we accept hauled wastewater from holding tanks, septic tanks, portable toilets, and other wastewater containers. So when you think of hauled wastewater, think of a septic truck. Basically, that's what it is. This is just another word for a septic truck. So licensed wastewater hauling companies, so wastewater haulers, can dispose of loads at the disposal facility. So we have this facility at the North End plant, open 24 hours, 7 days a week. It's a service that we provide to the haulers. So wastewater disposal fees are invoiced monthly to the haulers that use the facility. So the disposal fees cover the cost of treating the hauled wastewater, as well as the operation and maintenance of the disposal facilities. So the waste that I guess the haulers collect, it's a little bit more concentrated. It doesn't go through the sewer system. So it's, septic tanks or grease traps. So it's a little bit difficult to treat. So it does go to disposal facility and we have to treat that at the North End. So under the sewer bylaw, we have licensing and requirements. So wastewater haulers, they must have a license for the company. And as well, the wastewater disposal vehicle have to be licensed for each vehicle. So some companies will have one septic wastewater vehicle, some might have a dozen. It just depends on, they're unique, every septic or wastewater vehicle, because they have different capacities. So some can have really big tanks, some can have smaller ones. So we base the loads, so what we search or charge them on the tank capacity. So they have to have a unique license for each wastewater vehicle as well. The licenses are renewable every year. So this also gives the company an opportunity to update any of their information. So if their addresses change, if their contact information changes, anything like that, they have an opportunity at least minimum yearly to update their information. They also are required actually every time they do make a change, they have to notify us within 10 days, but at least at minimum, every year they update their information as well. So the wastewater haulers must comply with the license conditions and the sewer bylaw requirements. So the wastewater hauler license condition, one of them, if you don't meet the conditions of the license will be suspended or canceled. Also, the license holder must pay disposal fee invoices within 30 days of the issue date. In addition, under the sewer bylaw requirements, similar conditions, you must pay a volumetric disposal fee within 30 days of being billed. In addition, a designated employee is authorized to suspend and cancel a permit or license or authorization if the permit holder has failed to comply with this bylaw. And one of those conditions is the conditions imposed on the permit. So the conditions as above. So Action Plumbing has had a history with our division. They have not been paying their wastewater disposal fees since obtaining licenses in January of 2014. So this has been an ongoing issue. It's been over 10 years of issues of not paying their disposal fees. So at the beginning of 2014, so the whole year 2014 and to 2019, we issued 5 notices of bylaw violation issued for having an outstanding balance. We also issued an order to correct a bylaw violation for having an outstanding balance. So you'll notice these 5 years, we didn't do extensive enforcement. We didn't have a very robust program. So it was more of an education. So for 5 years, you work with the haulers, you let them know what they need to do, how to use the facilities, how to pay their bills, all of that. So it's more of an education program at the beginning of our waste hauler program. So between 2014 and 2019, that's what we were doing with the haulers. So we still issued them notices, but the enforcement wasn't as intensive as it was later on. So you'll see a gap there, 2019 to 2021. Again, it was a little bit of a COVID year. Our enforcement was not as heavy-handed, I guess. We didn't issue invoices with penalties or late fees, but we still issued the invoices, but we didn't do very much enforcement in that year. So from January 2021 to February 2023, monthly invoices were issued to Action Plumbing. So he would have received 24 invoices every month, right? Only 4 partial payments were received. So he did randomly pay, never actually clearing his account. In March of 2021, about 9,600. In August of 2021, just over 4,300. In July of 2022, about 5,000. But in February 16, he did pay his remaining balance, so 15,841. So his account was actually in good standing in February of 2023. But that is the last payment we received from Action Plumbing. So the account history on that. So the last payment, of course, we received was in 2023. He had received a 7-day license suspension in July. So he could not use the facility for 7 days. So he was unable to bring any disposal at the facility. In October, because he still had not paid his balance, we proceeded with a 21-day license suspension for an outstanding balance. And then a full payment was received right before we were going to go to our next step of enforcement. So the account was in good standing in February 2023. From March to September of 2023, Action Plumbing regularly used the disposal facility and was issued monthly invoices as well. We still did not receive payment. In September, an outstanding balance letter was issued to Action Plumbing. The total balance was just over 4,600, and that was due by October 14th, and we did not receive a payment. In December, we sent another letter that was issued, the total balance just over 6,000, and no payment was received. So how our enforcement works is that we will give them an opportunity, we'll give them 2 outstanding balance letters. So you get 2 letters, so that's about after every 30 days, to give them an opportunity to pay, because there are circumstances where some people can't pay their invoices. We completely understand that. So they have a couple of opportunities to pay that. Once that doesn't get compliance or receive payment, we proceed with license suspensions. So as the outstanding letters didn't receive payment, we proceeded with another set of license suspensions. So in January 2nd of this year, a notice of 7-day suspension was issued. This notice is appealable as well, sent by registered mail, and the suspension was served between the 20th and 27th of this year in February. We did not receive payment following the suspension. So our next step of enforcement is a 21-day license suspension, and that was issued on March 12th. Again, it's appealable, it's sent by registered mail. Action Plumbing did serve their suspension. They were not able to use the facility between April 15th and May 6th. We did also note on that suspension that repeated violations could result in permanent cancellation of all their licenses. We still had not received payment following that suspension. So we proceeded to the last step in enforcement, which was a notice of license cancellation. No payment has been received since the notice of cancellation, and that is what the appeal is about today. So we did send him a notice of a cancellation saying he would be canceled in June. However, he appealed, and we did not receive payments still. So we checked end of day on Friday and this morning, and the balance of 8,970 remains unpaid. We also want to note, in addition to the not paying wastewater disposal fees, we were able to do other types of enforcement. So under the MBEA, so the Municipal Bylaw Enforcement Act, you can issue penalty notices. So it's similar like a parking ticket. You can send them a ticket for violating some clauses in the bylaws. So in July of 2020, February 2021, July of 2021, and May of 2022, we did issue him penalty notices for not paying disposal fees. However, he has not paid those but one since then as well. So that form of enforcement hasn't resulted in payment as well. We also want to add, we've had a lot of enforcement history with Action Plumbing. In addition to not paying these wastewater disposal fees, we have over 15 penalty notices for other violations that have under the sewer bylaw, apologies. And those 2 have not been paid as well. So those have been sent to collections, and there's about 14 violations that have not been paid for that as well. So our recommendation today, Action Plumbing has had a history of not paying their wastewater disposal fees. Progressive enforcement has proven ineffective in gaining consistent compliance. We request that the appeal be denied and that Action Plumbing be required to pay the total balance on their account and wait 3 months before reapplying for licenses.
Thank you. Questions at this time? Public service? Councilor Gilroy.
So in terms of, is the contracts with these companies, are they with the city for disposal, or is this with the private owners?
Private owners.
Okay.
So restaurants, houses outside the city that have septic fields or tanks, some in the city. So it's all private companies.
Okay.
Mhm.
Councilor Dobson.
One question. So when we give them a fine, do we actually charge? Like the fine, is there a cost involved? Is that part of it?
Yeah, so the MBE penalty notices that we have issued, the fine is $500 and early payment of $250. So there is associated fine with that.
During the time between January twenty twenty-four to May of twenty twenty-four, has there been any communication from Action Plumbing to do a monthly payment or anything like that? Have you received any communication that they're, falling behind and they need more time?
We have had many conversations with Action Plumbing over the years. A lot of explanations as well, and we've been pretty patient with him. We have given him a lot of opportunities to do that. He has submitted some payments previously, what he can afford, which is completely understandable. But we have really not received a payment since last February, so that's quite a long time.
Okay, but I understand from the past, but I'm talking about currently the discussions in twenty twenty-four, the last few months.
Yeah, we
Similar
had
conversations?
yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
See no other questions. Move on.
Right, so first we'll hear from the appellant, Charlie Massa. Charlie is joining us via Zoom today. So Charlie, we've just asked you to start your video. And you can unmute yourself. We've asked you to unmute your microphone. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. So you have up to 10 minutes.
Sorry about that. Yeah. So there's been an ongoing issue with my ex and her being on my account and her going bankrupt, and my accounts are all frozen for our business. Yeah, it has been an ongoing issue, but she was always doing the books and kind of stealing money from me, which I can back that up. And
You know what, Charlie? I'm just gonna stop you there. I just wanna, I don't want you impugning anyone here. And this is a public forum. This is all
Okay.
on record. I'll let you deal with your personal matters on your personal time. We're here today to speak to this appeal that you've submitted regarding the company.
Yeah. Okay, so I have the money. It's not that I don't have the money to pay it. It's just that I haven't been able to cash our checks because of the frozen accounts, and they have to remove her from the account, which I've been told I got probably maybe another week or so that it's completely going to be done. I probably have like $40,000, $50,000 worth of checks that I haven't been able to cash. And it's not that I don't want to pay it. It's just that I've been cornered, that I've been getting paid from my customers and I can't cash these checks to make any payments. It's nothing to do with not paying or that I can't pay. Now that I'm in charge and I'm the only sole business owner of my company, things are going to be different. I have full control. I have nobody that's involved with my company anymore. And some of the places that I've been paying off have let me sign over one of my customers' check that's paid me to pay off their bill, which I have no problem doing that to you guys, where I just put on the back, deposit it to whoever the person was, and pay my account. I have no problem with that. I've been just sitting on this and kind of cornered and I have no control of it. I'm just through lawyers and stuff. So it's a process and I haven't been able to do anything about it. It's not just you guys, it's other people too. I want to pay my bill. It's my livelihood.
Okay.
And I have the money. I have no, I can, if you guys let me sign over a back of a check, I can come and pay it today even. It's not a problem. But I've been told probably within a week, my accounts should be all unfrozen and she's removed from my accounts, has nothing to do with it anymore. So I don't anticipate having any more issues now going forward, that I'm on my own.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Just an opportunity for anybody to ask any questions here.
I
Councilor
have
Dobson.
one question. Your total history with the city is not recent. It's over many years that
Correct.
you've not been paying your bills on time. What can you say to that, to the many years that you've had this license and you've been a little bit slow paying?
Yeah, I agree 100%. It's been sloppy. She was running the book side. I was working more the truck side on the field. And this is kind of where this led to kind of split up and this and that. And things weren't done properly and a lot of sloppy things running around with this and making things delayed and late. We get the money in, like customers pay their bill within 30 days. Some take a little longer. And yeah, like personal issues have happened throughout the years and kind of led to another whole thing. But now that I'm by myself, there's no reason why that I can't pay it. I'm sole proprietor now, so no one's on my business and that, so should be no issue anymore. Paying all my bills, I've caught up on everything else that I've had to deal with, and this is my last bill that I gotta pay, and then I'm back to normal.
Just a quick question for you then, Mr. Mazan. I'll seek clarification from the public service on this as well. If your appeal is denied, so your appeal is not accepted here today by this committee, what would be the plan moving forward for you?
I need a license. This is my livelihood. Pay my bill and get back set up and get back on track and make everybody happy.
Okay. I have no other questions. I don't see any other questions at this time. The clerk did notify me that you'll have an opportunity to speak to any new information that you hear. So if you can stick with us, we'll come back to you if you have any other comments after we potentially ask more questions here at the public service.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so there's no one else registered in support of the appeal, just checking in that no one in the gallery is in support of this appeal. We have no one registered in opposition to the appeal, so no one in the gallery is in opposition to this appeal or with respect to the appeal. Okay, if there are questions for the public service.
Councillor Santos?
Okay, so we heard from the appellant. They have checks in hand, willing to sign the back of the checks. What's your process in accepting that? Can you or can you not accept those checks?
It can be accepted, yes. Maybe we have to verify with finance and admin, but if he has checks in hand and willing to pay now, I'm sure we can accept the payment.
The timing on this too, like if his license is canceled today, he can reapply. He can reapply this month for a new license with payment. Like this isn't a ban. This is just a cancellation of license that he hasn't paid for a couple of years.
And just because the license is canceled with the city of Winnipeg, he can still operate as a wastewater hauler. So he can still continue his business. He just can't dispose at the North End treatment plant. So he can continue working. Right? He just can't use our facility. He has options.
Councillor Santos might have one, if not, I'm gonna.
I heard that if the license was canceled, he was not allowed to reapply after 3 months. I'm confused now.
Okay, so as we sent the suspension, he was going to be canceled in June and he wouldn't be able to apply till September because he appealed that was delayed. So that would begin starting September. He would be canceled. He'd have to wait 3 months, reapply, have to pay for his license. In addition, have no outstanding balance. So it starts,
The letter was dated saying reapply in September because of we issued the letter in May, end of May, right? So if it hadn't been appealed, that would have been in place. License would have been lost at the beginning of June, and then in September you can reapply. So I'm sorry, I misspoke there a few seconds ago. I was reading the letter. He would have to reapply 3 months from now. He wouldn't be able to bring sewage to our plant for 3 months.
Okay. And then now that he's appealed, it's delayed the decision. If we did not support the appeal, you issue, obviously he has the outstanding balance and then his license is canceled. He can still operate. And then 3 months from today's date, he would need to reapply for a license
Yep, and he'll reapply for a license if his account is in good standing and will reissue.
Okay, so from an operations standpoint, he's coming to the North End facility. Are there other options for him in the meantime, should his license be revoked and canceled, whatever terminology we want to use, and he reapplies and clears up his account?
Yeah, so he doesn't have options with the city of Winnipeg, of course. However, there are lagoons outside the city. He does a lot of grease trap disposal, so he can go to grease trap recycling companies as well to dispose there. So he has options as well.
See no other questions at this time? We'll turn it back over to the
So the appellant has the opportunity to speak in rebuttal to comments made. So Charlie, you're entitled to speak for up to 10 minutes in rebuttal to the comments that you heard, but no new information is permitted. You can go ahead.
Hello?
Hi, Charlie.
Alright, so basically, I pay my bill, just so I'm understanding, and then I gotta wait 3 months to apply for a license. So like, so what, September, October, November? Is that what I'm understanding, or?
Correct.
Correct. So on the circumstances, what's happening, why I feel that I should have the opportunity to prove myself that I'm on time to pay, when in the past I've dealt with several people at the city of Winnipeg clerk's office there, and it's been extremely difficult to communicate with managers, not getting back to me, not willing to work with me. I've called several times to talk to them. I've given you guys several times, I've told you my situation, why I haven't been paid. I haven't paid you guys, and no one's come to the table to help or give any kind of comment. They basically just said, too bad, it's your business, and left it in the dark. So I feel that a lot of stuff has been ignored. We pay top dollars to be there. Yes, it's a privilege to be there. I get it. Our bill has to be paid. 100%, I agree. Our standings with you guys has been crappy. 100%, I understand that. But that was not my side of the business. I can keep saying it till I'm black and blue. It doesn't matter. It is what it is. It's happened. My point is here now is I'm in charge. I'm going to take over this. I can prove myself that I'm not going to be late. I am going to pay my bill. You got to give us 30 days to pay. And I want to wipe out this bill and get caught up just like I've cleared everybody else up. I'm trying my best. Yeah, it's been a rodeo for me too. So it's not like I want to be in this position. It's my livelihood. This is how I survive to live.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. See no other questions here. That's it. Okay. So at this point in time, I believe we could move on to a motion.
We don't need to give explanations, do we? I don't think so.
No.
No.
Okay, I'll move the motion. I'll entertain a motion.
Okay, Councilor Jacobs.
Just so my council colleagues, and I'm looking to the clerk for appropriate wording. I'm not supporting the appeal. Okay, so I'll need that help on that.
Okay, sure.
I move that the receipt of the public representation be concluded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's carried.
I move that the appeal be,
So the appeal be denied and the
Denied.
decision be confirmed, and that would be not allowing the appeal.
yes.
So the decision of the director stands.
Okay, so denied in the notice of the Industrial Waste Services Branch Head Environmental Standards Division Waste and Water Department be confirmed.
Okay, if I might interject and pose a
Amendment?
potential amendment to allow in part if we were to, and I will potentially ask of the public service if this is even possible, that the license is canceled at the appeal, effective of the appeal date. That would force the applicant to reapply for a license. However, the clock would essentially be available at the end of September, I believe is the timing, and it would force the appellant to also pay their debt. I would assume that the public service would not issue a license without clearing of the balance. Is that accurate?
So the license suspension was till September 12th, so it could be canceled to September 12th. The balance will have to be cleared off, so they count in good standing. However, you will have to reapply for a new license, and there'll be a fee associated with that as well.
So my amendment would be that the 3-month period would end September 12th.
Because it started in June.
May.
Oh, sorry, May. Right, the notice was issued in May. Oh, so what you're suggesting is the 3 months,
That's
not started September 12th. It had started in May of 23rd. Okay.
Just so we have our dates correct here, we'll allow the public service or the clerk to interject here if the mover is open to the amendment.
Yeah, I'm open to the amendment. Great.
So just to confirm, councillors, so allowing the appeal in part, canceling the decision, and then the intention is to allow this individual to reapply in September rather than 3 months from now.
Would it be easier to say just to waive the 3-month delay? Like you're waiving, like license is canceled effective today.
Waive the 3 months.
You know, but we're waiving the 3-month waiting cool off period.
As a condition of the decision.
Yeah.
Okay.
That'd be clean.
That makes sense. Would you like to incorporate language though that, so the outstanding balance would need to be cleared in order to reapply, right?
Yes.
Okay,
So
so
it'd be just like any other normal reapplication, except that it can happen this month instead of. Right,
so it's that the appellant is entitled to reapply for a license as of September 12th or as of I don't know.
After
It
September 12th.
doesn't matter. It's-
After September 12th, yeah.
Provided they're in good standing.
Is that a policy regardless that they have to be in good standing to apply for
Have
this?
to be in good standing.
Okay, so pay off.
Yeah.
Yeah, in good standing.
Yes, so sorry, it would be that the appeal be denied, the decision be confirmed.
In part.
It couldn't be confirmed in part, it's, yeah.
So-
Councilors, do you mind if I take a brief recess?
Sure. Yeah, we'll take a brief recess here for those listening online. We'll be back with the conclusion here to this appeal in approximately 5 minutes or so. Welcome back to the appeal hearing for the Standing Policy Committee on Water and Waste and Environment. We are on item number 1 right now. There's a motion on the table by Councillor Santos that the appeal be denied. I had spoken up on an amendment. I'm going to withdraw my amendment at this point in time. And just to provide a little bit of context to that, I'll allow the appellant to sort out his finances on a personal level and with the department, and they can take it from there. So I will withdraw my amendment and move forward with Councillor Santos. If I could just have you read the second portion here.
Okay, I move that the appeal be denied and the notice of the Industrial Waste Service Branch Head Environmental Standards Division Water and Waste Department be confirmed.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And that is carried.
I move that the appeal hearing be concluded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that is also carried. Thank you very much. That's item number 1. We'll move on to item number 2.
Please note that the committee has made a final decision on this matter, which is not subject to further appeal. Item 2 is an appeal under the City of Winnipeg Sewer Bylaw number 106 of 2018 at 1 and 2 Point Douglas Avenue. The process the committee will follow is the appellant will be heard first, followed by those in support of the appeal, those registered in opposition, and those registered for information. The appellant may return to speak in rebuttal to comments made. However, no new information is permitted. All participants have been muted and will only be permitted to speak when called upon. Once you've been heard, you can either remain in the Zoom meeting or leave and continue to watch live via the city's YouTube channel. If any Zoom participants are currently watching the live meeting on YouTube, please mute the YouTube audio now. And I believe there's a brief presentation from the public service.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Good morning again. Oh, wait.
Yes, so we have Ms. Cynthia Weeb. She's Manager of Engineering Services here, Water and Waste. She's here to do a presentation on this. This is a very long issue we've had here, a long time issue, and hopefully we can provide some clarity with this appeal and the presentation.
Good morning.
Okay, good morning. So I'm here to speak to the appeal of the order to provide and not obstruct access to property on 1 and 2 Point Douglas Avenue. So here's a visual of 1 and 2 Point Douglas Avenue. It's located in the Point Douglas ward between the CPR, Red River, and Grace Street. We've been trying to access the property to inspect some sewers that run through an easement on this property. We have 253 meters of 1,200 diameter concrete interceptor sewer. It's originally installed in 1965. The interceptor takes flows from across the river at our Montcalm lift station, and it takes flows. I'm not sharing, am I? No. Sorry.
No, that's okay. Just wanted to, there is someone, oh shoot.
There you go.
I wanted
Yeah,
to.
do we escape?
Yeah, thank you. There's someone via Zoom, so I just want to
Okay,
make sure they
I
can see
start
it.
from the beginning.
Um,
One day I will get this
no,
right.
it's okay. Okay.
Okay, great, thank you. So I'll just really quickly. Sorry about that. Let me just, I don't know how to, sorry, get rid of that. There we go. Okay. Okay, great. So yes, this is the location in question in the Point Douglas ward between CPR, Red River, and Grace Street. Okay. So yes, what we're trying to get access to for sewer inspection is 253 meters of sewer. So we have a section here, down here, and through to this manhole. So it's all those sewer sections and 4 manholes. It takes flows from across the river, which is our Mission Combined Sewer District and our Roland Combined Sewer District. So we have 2 combined sewer districts, goes across a siphon, and then it goes into this interceptor, which then goes to the North End Sewage Treatment Plant. And to date, we've not been able to access the sewers for inspection. We've been obstructed from getting to the easement by the owner and the agent of the owner. So this is the legal plan of the easement. We do have an easement here in green, and that's on the property. And then this section where you saw that the sewer was bending. So the city does have an easement, but historically we've been not able to access the sewers via the easement because of structures that are on site or were on site. So these pipes I mentioned were installed in 1965, and to date they've never been inspected. So the condition of these sewers is unknown. We need to inspect them to assess their state of deterioration and plan any required rehabilitation as soon as possible. What we do know is that the sewers downstream of these pipes were inspected in 2018 and 2024 and were found to be in poor condition. So the sewers inspected in 2018 have already been rehabilitated. The one we've just been able to inspect is currently programmed for rehabilitation. So they were not in good condition. So based on the condition of these adjacent sewers, we have reason to believe that these ones are going to be in a similar state of poor condition. So the mandate for our department is to protect the health and safety of the public and the environment. And without knowing the condition of these sewers, we also can't operate and maintain it, which is a requirement under our Environment Act license. This presents a significant risk to the city. A collapse or failure of one of these pipes could cause an environmental discharge to the Red River, similar to what we've seen with the Fort Garry St. Vital siphons earlier this year. So we're really doing everything we can to try to avoid another discharge. So the work that needs to be completed, which we've spoken with the agent of the owner a number of times about, is the sewer condition assessment. This requires some specialty equipment, and I have some photographs here. You can see these, there's some, well, it'll be 2 to 3 vehicles. And what happens is you access the sewers from above the ground and you send some high pressure through the sewer, and that's going to clean the sewer. It's going to loosen up any of the debris that's settled in the sewers. You then have another vehicle, which is a vacuum truck, and it's going to suck out all this gunk, right? All the stuff that's in the sewers. And then we run a remote camera through the sewers. So that's the center picture. It's basically a remotely operated CCTV, which collects a high resolution video of the sewer and gives us an excellent picture of the condition. There's somebody in the third truck, which is operating the remote camera and also looking at it real time, able to pan around, and anything that kind of jumps out at them, they're able to zoom in and get some really good visuals. This work, typically an inspection can be done in a day. Depending on the level of cleaning, that could take an extra few days. So if there's a lot of cleaning, it could require a few days worth of work. The authorization for what we're trying to do comes from the sewer bylaw. The sewer bylaw was approved by council in December of 2018, and it aims to protect the city's infrastructure as well as public safety and the environment by establishing regulations that pertain to the installation, operation, maintenance of the city sewer. Specifically, it authorizes the city to conduct inspections, including accessing private property within a reasonable notice period. It also stipulates that the city shouldn't be obstructed from carrying out work on the sewer system. So we have been trying to work collaboratively with the property owner and their agent for quite a while to get the inspection. Unfortunately, they've wanted both monetary compensation and a separate agreement in order for us to access the property. Neither of these is required under the charter. So the charter itself provides a mechanism for the legal authority to enter with reasonable notice to inspect within a reasonable time. So since their demands could not be supported by the city, we've not been able to come to an understanding to access the property. Based on that, the city is using its authority to access and inspect the wastewater system as set out under the sewer bylaw and the city charter. Most recently, we sent a notification on June 6th. We attended the site on June 24th, but were not granted access. We are aware that there have been some fires on the property, so we may be able to access the property differently, but without getting on site, we're unable to determine the best course of action. So since the gates were locked, we couldn't get on. We subsequently issued an order on July 3rd. And were advised that we would not be given entry and the order would be appealed. So based on the criticality of the sewer under discussion and the known poor condition of the adjacent sewers, in order to ensure the health and safety of the public and environment, it is our recommendation that the appeal of the order to provide and not obstruct access to the property be denied. We also recommend that the owner be required to allow access to Water and Waste and its contractors to clean and inspect the sewer assets on property and perform any further work required for maintenance and renewal. And that is the end of my presentation.
Thank you very much. We'll look for questions at this time. I have a few myself. Counselor Santos?
Monetary compensation, what do you mean?
They wanted us to give them money in order to be able to access the easement on property. So pay them.
Okay. And you'd mentioned that you can access the area differently, how so?
Yes, correct. So when we started working with the agent of the owner, like the city has an easement and the sewer's within the easement, but there were structures on the easement, so we couldn't use the easement to get to the sewer. There was an internal road, not an official road, but like a pathway that we were trying to use or wanted to use in order to access the easement.
Okay, so now you're saying you can go around that?
That was what we were working with. There's since been some fires on the property. We don't know if, like the condition of the easement, we may or may not be able to access via the easement now. We won't know until we're on site. You know, premise of everything that we do at the city is, you know, to be as reasonable as possible, and we would minimize, you know, whatever access we would need.
Okay, then just backing up, all this stuff was installed back in 1965,
The sewer's correct.
right?
Yeah.
And since then, it has not been inspected
It has not been inspected, no,
by the city of Winnipeg.
at all,
Okay,
by anybody.
did at any point in time, the people that you've been working with had mentioned that they did their own inspection and assessment?
They have not mentioned it. We're also not aware of it, and it is a city sewer, so we would have needed to provide access, and it is something that we do ourselves in order to operate and maintain sewers.
Thank you.
Counselor Dawson?
Yeah, I just have, just kind of a basic question. Why did we allow them to build anything on an easement? I thought you weren't allowed to build on that.
Yes, typically that is the case, and I actually don't know the information or the answer to that question. My understanding is these easements go back a long way.
Okay, so it was done in the past, all right.
Mhm.
I guess,
Counselor Young?
thanks. So just to make, just to understand this for relevance of our bylaws, I always thought we would have to have, for emergency purposes, access to be able to get onto the premises. Are you telling me that this is locked?
There's a gate. There's a
Gate.
gate that's locked, yes.
And so there has been fires on the property. Have we been using this other access to get in? Because this is concerning, if there's fires in our emergency crews.
Correct.
Cannot access. So this other, how have emergency crews been accessing it? I know that that's kind of not part of this, but it is
Yeah.
if we're trying to look at changing our bylaws so these things don't happen. People shouldn't have,
Right.
we need to have access to properties in order to.
So, I mean, there is a gate. It is locked. I'm speculating, but I imagine emergency crews can probably have an ability to cut a lock, which is
Okay.
not something
That you're allowed to do.
we would do, no.
Okay. So is there, like, what would that fall under? Like, I think you should have the ability to bring, like, what's the difference in our bylaws that would allow emergency crews to do that? Like, we need access to our own.
And that's a really good question. I think potentially the difference here is we're aiming to do preventive maintenance, right? So we're trying to avoid something catastrophic happen versus if there was a catastrophic event.
Can I tag on to that?
Yeah, go ahead, yeah.
If there was a catastrophic event, what does that mean?
Um,
Will fines be issued through our office or through the Manitoba? Would they be so give me like
Right.
worst case scenario. Let's say we don't get onto the property and there is a catastrophic event
Yes.
and we have, what did you meant? Environmental discharge
Discharge.
into the Red
Yeah.
River.
So
So walk me through those steps if it's possible.
yeah, maybe the best thing I can recommend here is we do have legal on standby, and I feel like this would be
more in their purview, and they are willing to
Mhm.
provide recommendations in camera as it would be privileged and confidential.
I would like that, Mr. Chair.
Um,
I move a motion that we go in camera.
could I have an opportunity here to ask a few questions?
Yeah, sure.
Could this sewer be accessed from offsite of this property owner?
It cannot because it's a river crossing. So there's a siphon, like a sewer that goes underneath the river onto the property. And we've inspected as far as we can from offsite property, and all those sewers were in poor condition. So we have this chunk in between that we don't know about.
Okay, so you said a day, maybe a few days, depending on the condition for the
Yeah,
lockout and then the camera
It-
inspection.
the inspection itself is, we can do with a day depending on the level of debris. That's the unknown. It could be a day, it could be a few days.
So you guys head in there, have a look.
Mhm.
Clearly, there's need for repair. How long approximately do those types of repairs take?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. So it depends on the condition of the sewer. Primarily, what we try to do is something called like cured in place pipe. So it's like a sock liner, and it gets pushed through, and then you use steam, for example, and it creates a structural pipe. And that's what we were able to do on all the downstream pipes. If there are any major defects, so we call them external point repairs, we may need to access the pipe externally, dig, do a fix. Until we get in there to know, we don't know exactly what the case is.
Has there been any similar situations to this where we have been denied access altogether?
Not that I'm aware of, no. Usually people are quite happy to work with us because a collapse of a sewer on property is not just catastrophic for the city, but it would be catastrophic to the property.
I have a question here, but probably can't answer it. Chief Schmidt was here, I'm sure he could, but to the best of your knowledge, was WFPS allowed access or gained access to the property?
I don't know. The fire was put out, so I am going to make an assumption, but I'm not speaking with any authority.
And then I can see Councillor Gilroy, I might have a follow-up question, but this is along the same lines of the other councillor's questions. What is the risk to the landowner should this repair not take place?
The worst case scenario is the pipe could collapse. So just imagine like a 1.2 meter, I was gonna say tunnel, sorry, sewer collapsing, big sinkhole. My understanding is the property is currently vacant, not in use, but the real risk is environmental, because all the sewage from those two combined sewer districts has nowhere to go except the river.
So I know that we do get charged when we release into the river, because we have an environmental license that, from the province of Manitoba. So do we have the abilities through our bylaws, so if this were to happen, to charge the owner?
I think that would be a great question for legal.
Okay.
And then just to follow up with the pipes, I'm just looking at the map here on their exhibit. It's the North Point Douglas neighborhood. Their sewer goes under into this interceptor. Which communities use this interceptor?
It's across the river. So the Mission Combined Sewer District, like the St. Boniface Industrial area, and then the Roland, kind of like Monroe, it's a bit more residential. Those are the two districts.
That would be affected due to a pipes collapse.
Correct, yes.
I wouldn't know, and, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sewage from that area has to get to the north end plant, so
Yeah.
this is where it crosses the river.
Ah,
So all those neighborhoods are
Yeah.
all collected, crosses the river, goes in this interceptor that cuts through this property, and it continues on its way to the north end plant. So if this was to collapse, yes, there's property damage there, but I mean, there could be overflow there onto the property, but we would have to divert all that sewage. If this pipe was out of service, we'd have to divert it to the river. Because it can't continue to.
See no other questions. I know that the conversation around consulting legal, I would ask that we hear from the appellant first and then consider that as an option. Seeing no other questions, thank you very much at this point in time.
Okay, so first is the appellant, Curtis Parker, who's joining us in person. You can make your way up to the table there and you have up to 10 minutes for your presentation.
Morning.
Morning. Morning, counselors. Thank you for the opportunity to present this morning. My name is Curtis Parker and I'm here as legal counsel for AC Land Co. 98 Inc. AC Land Co. is the registered owner of the lands at issue in this proceeding. As an opening comment, I'd like to start by saying that AC Land Co. is open to working with the city and to being reasonable, but any access to these lands must be likewise reasonable, defined with specificity, and above all respectful to this owner's private property rights, which I would stress cannot and should not be an afterthought in this committee's decision today. On the screen and on Friday morning, our office filed on behalf of the owner written submissions in support of the appeal. Those are on the screen as well. I'd like to just draw your attention to page 2 of that submission. And so located at page 2 and on the screen right now is a municipal map that shows the subject lands. The lands that are the subject of this appeal and order are industrial lands in the Point Douglas neighborhood of Winnipeg. This is a large and impressive piece of riverfront property that has a long history and significant development potential. The surface area of these lands are equivalent for context to more than 20 football fields. There are 4 acres approximately that the AC Land Co. owns north of the rail line, and that's identified on this map as parcel 22 and civically known as 0 Higgins Avenue. This area is exclusively green space that gets more dense as you approach the river. And at page 5 of our submission, you can see this is a photograph of those 4 acres that are north of the rail line. This is from drone footage that was taken in 2018. And below that is from the Manitoba AgriMaps website that shows these lands. And as you can see, they are heavily vegetated and green space. The remaining 12 acres of the appellant's lands are south of the rail line. And I can just give you a visual. This is at page 3 of our submission. This is close to what the land looks like in its current state. This is from Manitoba AgriMaps as well. There are 2 large structures situated on what is 1 Point Douglas Avenue. that you can see in this visual. 2 Point Douglas Avenue is the largest of the parcels. And while there used to be a number of structures there, in recent years, there have been demolition works and they are presently vacant with no structures on them. What you'd see if you looked at that land today, 2 Point Douglas Avenue is large areas of concrete, remnants of buildings that were demolished, areas damaged by fire, vegetation, and that becomes much denser as you approach the river, as can be seen in this visual. I'm just going to turn to page 6 of our submission. There are 2 known sewer lines on the subject lands. This is an image that was provided to our client by the city in 2022, and this looks to be mostly consistent with the information that was that you heard this morning in terms of there being 2 sewer lines. There is one that travels, as you can see here, there's a portion that sits on the appellant's lands north of the railway. And then the sewer line is under the CP rail line. And then there's a portion of it that sits on 1 Point Douglas Avenue and is connected to the river. And then there's another sewer line based on this visual that sits in part on 2 Point Douglas Avenue south of the structure. We did the exercise of measuring the length of these lines just using the Manitoba AgriMaps measurement tool. And I appreciate that this is just approximate. But what you can see on the screen is that visual. So if we were to assume, for the sake of a calculation, the width of 4 feet, the length of these sewer lines is less than a quarter of 1 acre. There is no known sewer line or manhole on 0 Higgins Avenue, except at the very westernmost end where you can see my cursor. So that 4 acres of green space that I showed you earlier, there is no known sewer line or sewer structures on that space. And with respect to 2 Point Douglas Avenue, except for what is immediately south of that building, the vast majority of the property, almost the entirety of the property, has no sewer lines or manholes. And if I can just direct you to page 12 of our submission, this is a visual of the areas of the appellant's lands that have no wastewater system, no known wastewater system on them or under them. And I use the term wastewater system deliberately because that is a term that's defined by the bylaw. And it is the inspection of the wastewater system that the city has given as justification for the order. The areas highlighted in yellow are areas where there are no known sewer lines. And we're not aware of any dispute over the fact that the overwhelming majority of these lands do not have sewer lines under them or any structures that would meet the definition of a wastewater system within the meaning of the bylaw. However, that being the case, the order under appeal would have AC Land Co. provide the department with access to the full 16.5 acres for the purpose of inspecting a wastewater system that spans an area that is at most a quarter of an acre. So the appellant's position and our principal objection to the order is that its scope is far in excess of what is reasonably required to inspect the wastewater system. The Winnipeg Sewer Bylaw does not give city employees an unlimited right of access or any right of access to private property for reasons unrelated to fulfilling the specific regulatory objective of the sewer bylaw. And we would submit that is precisely the situation we have here. The department is relying on the sewer bylaw to assert a right over private property that has, the overwhelming majority of which has no sewer lines. And of course, the power given to a city employee under the sewer bylaw to enter private property for an inspection is and has to be limited only to what is absolutely necessary to fulfill the specific regulatory objective. I would put the question to the committee rhetorically: what possible use could department employees make of the lands north of the rail line that is permitted by the sewer bylaw? What inspection of sewer lines is going to happen on these lands? And the same question could be posed with respect to the overwhelming majority of 2 Point Douglas Avenue, the area that is highlighted to the east of 1 Point Douglas Avenue, and even under the buildings, inside the buildings. These are buildings that have been vandalized. The concrete is crumbled around the entranceways. You can see that in some of the photographs that are attached to our submission. There are large cracks in the ground. There are no sewer lines under these buildings. So to summarize, the breadth and scope of the order we would submit is excessive and unreasonable and goes far beyond what the sewer bylaw gives designated employees the right to do as it relates to the inspection of private property. The second objection to the order, and I'm mindful of my time, is relates to the issue of liability. These are lands that, if the city employees have access to 16 acres, these are lands that have uneven topography, dense bush, broken concrete, areas damaged by fire, broken glass. There's been demolition of numerous structures. There's a reason why there's a gate and a lock, is that there is no shortage of hazards.
I'll move 2-minute extension. If you can finish up in 2 minutes, that'd be
2
great.
minutes, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's carried. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Now, of course, nobody expects this to happen or wants this to happen, obviously, but obviously accidents do occur. And when a person is injured on land, the occupier of the property is very often the target of litigation. The city had at one time confirmed in writing that it would provide the owner with a safe, harmless agreement. But that did not happen. There was no agreement put into place. And I've heard the reason why just this morning in terms of what's contemplated by the charter. But nevertheless, the city did indicate a willingness to do that. However, now the city wants access to all of the land and appears to be resiling from that position to provide a safe, harmless agreement, which causes our client a great deal of distress. To just wrap up briefly, Mike, the owner is, I'll say again, open to working with the city and is prepared to be reasonable, but there would need to be many assurances in writing for that to happen. But an order, the order under appeal that gives city employees unlimited right of access to every corner of this property, when there's no, we would submit valid regulatory basis for them to be there, is not appropriate, or we would submit lawful. And so our request is that the subject order be canceled. I will say, as long as I have a few more seconds, that the issue of easements and caveats, there are caveats registered against title, but because of the decision of the city to assert a right of access by virtue of the bylaw, we would suggest to you that that is really a non-issue for this committee, nor is it this committee's task to analyze what rights flow under those caveats. Some of those agreements one of them was written in the 1930s, and most of the text is illegible. So I would be hard pressed to be able to, I'll put it this way, it is a very much an open question what rights the city has by virtue of those caveats. But in this case, they've decided to assert a right under the sewer bylaw, and it's that which brings us here today. And just if there's any dispute over the scope of the order, the legal description has been defined.
Thank you very much.
Questions?
we will have some questions here, I'm sure. Councillor Gilroy?
So I think you concur that there is City of Winnipeg infrastructure that is on the property. Has your employer or yourself, on behalf of your employer, tried to find an access point that would work for both yourself and the city so that they can see the underground pipes? Like you're saying, you don't want access to the whole property, but has there been any discussion regarding on what would be allowable under your terms?
There have been many discussions over the years between the city department officials and the owner and issues around liability and the scope of the request for access. And I don't think that those conversations have been overly productive or led to well, clearly not a resolution. So I don't know if that completely answers your question, Councillor, but that's, I don't think beyond that there have been any discussions about specifically where the city employees could access or how that could come about.
Okay, thank you.
I have a few questions. So I keep coming back to, after first reading this appeal that you folks had submitted, is what is the concern of having the public service come on and conduct this work to mitigate any environmental effects that it may have should this sewer collapse?
I think principally the concern is twofold. What has been requested is not just to come on to the property and go in the areas specific to where the known sewer lines are. It is unlimited access to every corner of this property, and it is a very sizable parcels of land that are marked by hazards, which leads to the second concern, is one of liability. The city was at one point, as I mentioned, prepared to enter into a Save Harmless agreement. We don't know why that is no longer the case. I've heard the explanation this morning, but that was the position at one point in time, and now the city wants unlimited access without that in place.
Yeah, and you keep bringing up the safe, is it hazardous agreement?
Save Harmless agreement.
Harmlessness, thank you. A lot of the things that you're talking about, I think, are falling under a different scope of community livability bylaw and how the property is maintained there. I don't think we want to go down that road today. But I ask myself, representing a ward where there are several large properties, some of which don't have water and sewer, but some of which have water and sewer, are up to 2.5 acres. What would be the difference between the city requesting to go on that property, in your opinion, and your client's property here to inspect any type of underground infrastructure that the city owns?
I think it's an issue of magnitude and scope, Councillor.
Mm-hmm.
The sewer lines on this property are, as you've heard, it's less than a quarter of an acre we're talking about in space. The city is asking for more than 60 times that. And there's no regulatory basis for them to have access to those lands. And it's, we're talking about the property rights of the private common law rights of a property owner.
So under those rights, you're insinuating that the Public Service Water and Waste Department is going to, I guess, travel all about, your concern would be that they would travel throughout the entire 16-acre parcels that come to 16 acres. Is that what the client's concern is?
That is part of their concern, yes, Councillor.
They're going to travel around and look at non-existent sewer lines?
Well, under the current order, they would have the right to access all 16.5 acres of the property.
Right. But you stated in your presentation that there are no sewer lines on several acres of this land. So what would they be doing in those, that would be a concern to your client in those sections of land?
Well, anything that isn't authorized by the bylaw. And so if what the department is saying is that we don't need access to 16.5 acres, if the order, if the scope of the order does not accurately reflect what the department wants to do, then it's, I would submit, not a proper order, and they should revisit this. But in terms of whether the order itself is valid, if that is the case, then I would suggest it is not, if it has not been drafted in a way that accurately reflects what the department intends to do on these lands, which we are, in the dark with respect to for the most part.
Yeah, and I guess I come back to my same question, and I'll be specific to the area. In Charleswood, there are several large pieces of land. If the city chooses to go and inspect the infrastructure that they have there, essentially what you're saying is those property owners are entitled to that narrow pipe and don't step on any other piece of the property. Like, I'm not following you on that.
I think when an authority is exercising their regulatory right to inspect, the law, the case law, talks about how it needs to be done in a way that is reasonable and as least to the least intrusive way to the owner. So I see no principled reason why the department cannot be specific in terms of what their request is for access. And I would say that in response to the example you've given, and it may be that the owners of those properties, those are not industrial properties with demolished foundations where they are, replete with liability concerns. I don't think we're talking about apples and apples. And the fact is, this owner has these concerns, and I would submit they are valid.
Well, I will ask the public service about the specificity of the location of these and how much room potentially they need to work within that location to get the job done here, because at the end of the day, there is city infrastructure there that does need to be inspected. Sounds like that's in agreement in this room today here, even from your clients, but how we get there, I guess we'll decide here today. So any other questions?
I would like to move in cameras, so can you? Oh, is there somebody else or, yeah.
Okay.
The delegations first.
Okay, we will hear from other presenters here. I'll turn it back over to the clerk. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Next in support of the appeal is Steve Butt, who's joining us via Zoom. Steve, you can go ahead and unmute yourself, and you have up to 10 minutes for your presentation. Stephen is speaking in support of the appeal.
Good morning, Council. I don't plan on taking 10 minutes of your time. I think that Curtis, in many ways, showed or spoke to our position on what's happening here. I guess from our perspective, I've never, from 5,000 feet, I have no intention of ever denying the city access to the lands or what's reasonable. Heaven forbid something happened to a sewer line. Nobody wants that. You don't want that. We don't want that. Nobody wants that. That's just something that no one wants. I think that what happened was when this first came out, they said they wanted full access to 16 acres of our site. And as Curtis so rightfully pointed out, that's 60, 65 times the amount of land you actually need. I want to come back and cover a couple quick points though. How long will the city be there? Today was the first time I ever heard that they wanted to be there for 3 or 4 days to scope it. But we also heard if there's any remediation work, what would that be? Could you actually sleeve these lines? Could you repair them in a way that's non-intrusive? We don't know that. So what happens if, like a similar situation just happened in Calgary where I'm currently sitting, you find some of the lines are collapsed and you can't repair them. So now we need to go in and we need to remove those lines, replace those lines. Now what? That's not a 3 or 4 or 5 day process. They've been dealing in Montgomery here in Calgary, where I'm speaking of a recent issue with the sewer line. They've been dealing with it for months. And now they're shutting it down and doing it again. And by the way, while they're working there, someone from the city got hurt. Exactly what we're talking about. That's public record. Please look it up. You can look online and you can Google that. A couple other things I wanted to bring up was that there might be some misinformation here, and I would like to just touch on a couple things that were said. The sewer line on the south side of the property, I believe, was replaced in 2000, not 1965. It was replaced 24 years ago. Please, I wish someone to look that up and get back to and see whether or not my information is incorrect or whether what was potentially reported here today was incorrect. On the north side of the property, the city doesn't have an easement for access. There also is no fence there. There's no easement, there's no fence. The city can come and go as they please. It's the old boat launch site that the city's had, and the city's been on that site. And it's not that you haven't had access. From my understanding, the city has been there. They have had access. They have been working there. They have looked at the lines there. So by saying they haven't had access or haven't looked, I believe that to be untrue. Again, north side, no gate. Please look all you want. You're welcome to get in there. If you look at the map, you'll see there's nothing there. There's no fence. There's nothing stopping anyone from going there. On the south side, there is a fence. There's a big thing made about the site is locked. How do we gain access? How do we get in if something happens? Well, of course, the fire department just cuts a lock. That's the first thing they do. And we have zero issue with that. The only reason we have a gate on there is to keep people off the site. The only reason we need to keep people off the site is the fact that I don't want to go too far down this road, but for the most part, are dozens and dozens and dozens of complaints. I would say we probably have more than 40 into the city about vagrants and homeless people living near there who are causing the fires and causing us, I'm told, hundreds of thousands of dollars of damage haven't been dealt with. It's almost an impossible situation. We're caught in a catch-22 there. We can't deal with the situation, hence we need the fence. Hence we repair the fence all the time. Hence we take vagrants off the property on a somewhat regular basis. It's unfortunate. And again, if we could deal with the vagrancy issue, then we wouldn't have a fence there. I'll take the fence down. Again, the fence was on the south side of the property because there's business operating there. There were buildings there. There's business being operated there. People were gainfully employed on the south side. Well, they locked the fence when they went home at night so people wouldn't enter the buildings. That made perfect sense. At this point, the gate is mostly there just to keep people off the site. However, they seem to gain access on a regular basis. So my big thing is, again, as Curtis so mentioned, that one time we had a safe harmless agreement. Well, insurance to make sure something happened. If there was an accident on the site, much like just happened in Calgary, we want to make sure we're not involved in that. I have no problem with the city gaining access, limited access. I don't think they need a lot more than what they need. Tell me what you need. Give me a defined scope of what you need. Let's make an arrangement. While you're there, if something happens, I would like to make sure that we have no liability. I think that's only reasonable. Again, another thing was made up that these buildings were on top of the sewer lines. I think the picture that you saw already, please feel free to show me anywhere in there where the buildings were on top of a sewer line. I don't believe that to be the case. So there's a few things that I think we just need to stand corrected. But at the end of the day, we want to work with the city. We want to be reasonable. I just want to make sure that if the city get in there and does 3 or 4 days work, great. I think we're all happy. We all go home, everything's great. If something happens and they can't repair it and they need to replace things, they need to be in there for months repairing. Now, what does that look like? The comment made was work and further work. What further work is that? And is that it's not defined in any way? And of course, if there's a reason that they need to go in and replace the lines, that you have to do that. Now you're digging up soil, you're digging up ground, you're tossing it aside. You've got men in there, you've got cranes in there, you've got equipment in there. It's a very different scenario than what we're currently talking about. And we're concerned that that may be a potential. But again, I don't think the line on the south side is anywhere near as old as you think it is. I think you'll find your records that was replaced at one point. It's more the north side. And that would be far less of an issue from me because, again, there's no fence, no gates there. But on the south side, we want to make sure that if you're in there, you're not in there for 6 months or a year. And that would be my submission, really, that I would like a defined amount of area that you need. You don't need 60, 70 times the amount of land. Give us a definition of what you think is reasonable. We're reasonable. And a period of time. If it's a week or 2 weeks to do a scope, please let us know. It's 2 weeks. I'm okay with that. But if it comes back and suddenly you need a year or 6 months or 9 months to be in there to replace water lines, how do we deal with that issue? So our land, they've got complete access, it's sterilized for 9 months, and what do? Wait till they're done before I can gain access again? I just think it needs to be more defined in scope and more reasonable in terms, and I think that's what Curtis was trying to convey to the council. Those would be my submissions.
Thank you very much. Turn to my colleagues for any questions. I appreciate your submissions, and I will be following up with the public service on some of the points, as I mentioned to the council there, around exactly what kind of space we need to access the city infrastructure there. So thank you for your time today.
Thank you, council.
All right, where would we go at this point? Should we have if we were to move on, or if we were to consult with legal?
Further questions from the service, or if you wish to go in camera, you certainly can.
Maybe we'll ask a public service
Sure.
questions
Yeah.
before we go in camera.
Okay. No questions for the public service at this time?
So just in terms of the amount, so the concern was the amount of space that is needed. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, in previous discussions before we went to the order, we were saying that we need to access the easement on just the south side of the property. Unfortunately, we couldn't go through the easement. And so we needed to go around. So there would be some access on the private property, but again, we always take the approach of reasonableness. We're here to do a specific job. We're not here to go around everywhere. So since the fires on the property, we're unsure what the access looks like, which is when we were there in June, had we been able to get on the site, we would have been able to see if we could access via the easement, but we don't know what it looks like and we don't know where we'll be able to go. As you heard, there's been a lot of demolition, so we may need to, drive around some certain areas in order to get to the manholes to access them.
So another concern might be for a property owner is if, say, there is a lot of demolition on the site and that, maybe the city's bylaw team would be coming in and issuing other tickets for other things, might be a concern of the property owner. When you go on site, is it just your team? Are you looking at other things that could raise tickets or other issues for the property owner?
Yeah, no, we're there for one purpose and one purpose only. What happens is it would be like the project manager would be going, we'd be going with the our contractor, who is a sewer inspection contractor. That's the purview of the work, that's their area of expertise. It's the only thing we're there to do, is look at the condition of the sewer.
And the reasoning why you want such a big area is because you're trying to figure out how to get onto that easement.
So I guess there's two things, like the order has the legal description of the property, right?
Okay.
So when the order is issued, there's nothing, like the bylaw just says to define the property. It doesn't say the particular section of the property. So we use the legal description, which is the full property. So that's why that's there. But again, we would approach it from a position of reasonableness. We don't need to go on the north side. There is nothing there. In previous conversations with the owner's agent, we were more specific in trying to work with them to say, here are the points we need to access. How can we access it?
And this is a new term I haven't heard of, because like for me, I'm I represent the inner city area. People go on other people's properties that are completely burnt, so there's lots of safety issues when our bylaw officers go in. The safe harmlessness agreement. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yes. So that is that is a legal agreement. And again, legal could probably provide, I'm speaking as an engineer about legal.
Yeah,
I guess it's like a waiver of liability, but in speaking with our legal, it's like the city has like that liability covered, right?
Okay.
We don't, there's not an agreement necessary. The city is responsible for the health and safety of its employees and the contractors. That's part of our contract with the, that's part of our employment contract and it's part of our
common
contract.
agreement, is this a common agreement that we do on many of these?
No, we don't typically, we don't do these same purpose agreements.
It would be redundant.
It would be, yeah, they already
You're
have,
self-insured.
they have that coverage.
Okay.
And that was, so initially we thought that might be necessary, so we were having discussions about this, and then as we were working with legal, they were like, they provided us with the information that we don't need it because this is an inherent, I don't know what the right word is, it's inherently there, they inherently have that coverage.
Cause I'm thinking of all the properties that
Yes.
our public service goes into every day, a lot in my ward.
That's it.
I've boarded up vacant buildings that are derelict.
Yeah.
And anyone could fall through them and they're inspecting it for fire.
Exactly, so
Okay,
the
so-
city
so we're
covers, we're fully covered,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. We need a motion then?
I had a couple of questions here. So, to the appellant's question of what happens if the repair can't happen?
Mhm. So, step one is getting the inspection and there's always a way to repair it, right? Well, I suppose like there's always a way to renew it. Worst case scenario, if the pipe was collapsed, which it isn't, you would have to build a new one, right?
This is our similar situation with the.
Correct,
work
correct.
here.
And that really speaks to also like why it's so important to get in. The earlier we get in, the sooner we catch a deterioration in progress,
Right.
the less invasive it is. So the other downstream sewers, for example, we line them, right? It's a trenchless technology. You don't need to dig up.
You just have to set up at the manhole, like you have to set up at access points.
Yeah.
There's some equipment set up and
Yeah.
access that way. But no.
So, the sooner we can address deficiencies, the less invasive it is. The longer they go, the more deteriorated the pipe, the more invasive potentially the rehabilitation is.
So before I get to the space you folks need, the claim that the south sewer line replaced in 2000.
It was the river crossing, actually, that,
yeah.
yeah, it was the force main from the lift station that was replaced, not the interceptor sewers it dumps in, or it flows into.
So description of location for that community. I'm looking at Ivy right now.
Yeah, do you see this black line?
Yeah.
The big fat black lines?
Yeah.
Those were replaced or rehabilitated in 2002, 2004, yeah, four.
Oh, to May 10th, 2000.
Oh, there it is, it's right there, see, I don't have it open, but so the sewers that we want to inspect were constructed in 1965.
Those are the ones in
So-
orange.
The orange ones, yes.
For those that are watching at home,
Yeah.
we're looking at a mapping program called iView that indicates years that are repairs, constructions, I suppose, are taking place on this in particular water sewer tab that I have in front of me here. But clearly shows across the river that was done on May 10th of 2004. Okay, so thank you for clarification on that. Just in regards to the space now. So I hear from legal counsel there, essentially in layman's terms, why do you need to go into the bush area? Why do you need to go to the green space? There's no sewer lines under what looks like a concrete surface that probably housed industry back in the day. you know, I'm trying to find mapping here that shows where these structures might have stood, but I can't. Essentially, why can't we just draw lines of, say, split the southern portion in half? Is there anything there that we would need to go on? And then the same thing at the top. So I see lines that cross a pathway here to the north of the rail line. It's indicated as a sewer main interceptor, 7,01101 that crosses over onto, I apologize, I'm not super familiar with some of these streets. But, you know, there doesn't appear to be anything to the north of that. So is there a world where we just say, here's the map, chunk it from south to north that is going to include those two remaining structures, but that gives assurance to these folks that we're not going to, for whatever reason, be
Well,
digging up the rest of their property?
we certainly, like at this point, we're not digging anything up. We're just going in to inspect. We don't need to access north of the rail line at all.
Okay.
Until we see what kind of demolition or what the access is on the south side, it's hard to say. But again, I can say, you know, the intent is to access as directly, as efficiently as possible, and really just to get in and get our sewer inspection done.
Because if we weren't, we're paying for these contractors.
We're paying for them.
So this is
correct.
coming out of water and waste budget.
It comes from
So this,
utility rate.
so this
yeah.
is, right,
Yeah.
okay. So taxpayers paying their utility or water and waste
Yep.
are funding this project
That's it.
indirectly.
Yes.
So is there any reason why we would want to, I guess, make this project any bigger than this?
Absolutely not, because it just limits us from doing other critical inspection work. So we're here
That
to
is
make it as
clearly
efficient as
necessary in the city of Winnipeg with
It is.
our
It is,
underground
yes.
infrastructure. Okay. Okay, yes.
Just
Councilor
for
Sanders.
clarity, there was discussion about, that there actually are no manholes. I heard from the presentation, but you're saying there are 4 manholes.
4 manholes. Yeah.
Are you able to tell me where those manholes are? Are they at, so I'm looking at iView.
Can I come around?
Sure.
I mean, so,
I'm assuming that's where your guy is gonna go down is into the manhole.
correct, yeah, or that's where we put in the sewers. So these little round, there's a little round dot. Oh, you know what? You just don't have the layer on, but there will be any time. So this is a bendy sewer, but typically at any junction.
Yeah.
So there.
Curves. there.
Yeah, and then there's another one over here. I can also pull up my other,
So that's where the potential manholes are,
yes,
and that is potentially where.
Councilor Santos, I'm just thinking for those that are watching and will watch, we should probably have some representation here visually. Okay, great,
Absolutely.
yeah,
You need
sorry,
2 seconds?
I just don't want people to come back and
Right.
see that we're just pointing at a screen and not providing the actual locations.
Remember to share this.
Mhm. Let's go, Sharon.
It's not on Zoom yet.
Oh.
No, she's.
Thank you.
Did I click the right one?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. So it is small, but there, you see these black, there's a black dot there. There's one
Yeah, so
there.
if you can scroll in.
I don't think I can when oh, you know what though? Sorry. Maybe if I.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Oh, I went, sorry. Okay, I'm gonna figure this out here. Do you want me to zoom in even more here? Let me
You kind of see them, I think, from there.
see if I can. Okay, there we go. So now,
Yeah,
Yeah.
so the two red lines.
this is this is the
So
fourth
that's the
main.
one force main that's been
Renewed.
renewed in two
Correct.
thousand and four.
Yeah.
And then at each quote juncture.
Yeah, this black dot,
Yeah, would be considered
It's
a
black dot.
manhole.
Yeah.
Okay, so the green is the easement,
and then we have an easement along here as well.
okay?
So,
Your team would need to get access somehow to the green portion,
to this dot,
to that dot.
this dot, and then, yeah. and then this dot we would access via CP property.
Okay, but that is outside of
That is
the easement,
correct, yes, that we would work with CP on.
OCP,
Yeah.
okay.
So it's really, it's these two,
And then somehow
Dots here.
your crew would have to kind of use the lane off of, I believe that street is.
it's the Point Douglas
Point
right
Douglas.
of way.
Yeah.
So back in, a few years ago when we weren't able to like typically you would just come up your easement, but we weren't able to access that way. So the intent was to, it's not like an official like roadway on property, but to go around the way the vehicles on property would
And
come.
where's the fencing along the property?
I believe it's right here.
And is the fencing around the easement or south of the easement? Do you know where the fence?
I think it's on property line. Yeah, but the gate is right here.
Sorry, you had identified the three, so the two to the east, the one to the
One,
north,
two,
sorry, yeah, north.
three.
And then the fourth one is down there, middle of the blue box-ish.
Correct, right there.
Just to the west, further west, is it?
Sorry, right here, right here. And these two are on CP
Okay, so
property.
the other one that's inside the blue box that's further to the left on the screen is not something we're accessing?
We should just know, like, these locations are usually pretty good in our GIS,
Yeah.
but sometimes some of these locations can be off a little bit.
But they are there.
They're there, this pipe is there.
Yeah.
There's connection
There's a
points.
chamber right here.
But whether or not it's, specifically the center line of that.
Sure, yeah.
Like it could be,
It is, now this pipe, was just basically servicing the property, so it would be more like a sewer service, so we don't need to inspect it. It's not taking the flow from the river crossing.
Any other questions about our mapping here and the
So
sites?
I guess just trying to figure out, why somebody would want us on the property. So say there was damage that they were responsible for, in terms of that pipe, would that be something you'd be looking at too? Like, I guess a good example of that is, I have a leak,
Mhm.
right? And I have to figure out if it's on the city side or my side, and then the city comes in and takes a look, and all of a sudden, the leak's on my side, and now my water's turned off because it has to get fixed, right? So,
This is all city infrastructure, so
It's
this
all-
is,
so
this is an interceptor, which is like the freeway of the sewer system. Will
the
be
cost, all the costs would be
100%, yes.
100% on the
Any rehabilitation would be at the, cost of the city.
Okay. Sorry,
Yeah, no, don't apologize.
I'm gonna go to the north side,
Correct?
past the railway. Have
I
you
only have
checked
this.
those lines? 'Cause
We
you're
don't
the-
have any sewers up in the north side.
Of the railway tracks.
Yes, it's just, when the order went, it went with a legal description for the property.
it's like an address, like we.
Yes.
Okay, cause I am seeing a sewer main interceptor that goes through Buchanan Park. On iView,
Is that the north side?
well, the north side of the railway tracks.
Oh, the very corner, the lower corner.
Oh, the very corner?
Yeah.
This one here?
Yeah.
This guy?
Yes.
We've inspected that. That was one that we've just inspected. So we accessed from over here
Yep. through the
and
camper.
went upstream. And that one needs fixing as well.
Okay, and that's where you were starting to determine that these lines were
Yeah.
old and then, okay.
And even further downstream, like the sewer continues on off the screen. We had to do some rehabilitation 2018 when we got those inspections.
And then I'm assuming you're gonna have conversations to go to the other sewer main interceptor that goes underneath the railway tracks. and
Yeah,
have those
we've been working
conversations
with
CP.
We've been working with CP, yeah.
So what? Just being
Mhm.
dumb and naive to the,
No, it's good questions.
if you get access to CP lines prior to, what stops you from going along the CP line and then going into the easement area?
It's so that,
Underground, you don't need
Yes.
access above ground manhole, you go underground CP. And to take the CP line and then go on, like, you know, through the easement way, you know what I'm talking about?
I totally do, and that's a really great question. There's limits to, like, getting around the curve is
Yes.
gonna be really hard. And sometimes, like, there's directions you want to do your inspection in.
Okay.
So accessing, like, you know, we may have to, right? Sometimes you get part of the way from one area and you go part of the way from the other, but this is quite a long stretch, so we won't be able to get that.
The more effectively and efficiently, you
Mm-hmm.
want the least resistance, you're gonna go halfway down one way and then halfway through the other way.
Right, and then there's also a siphon, like it goes, like under the tracks, there's a bit of a dip, so we're limited in what we can, how we can get that inspection too, so we need to attack it from both ends.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Look at that, we're engineers, can I get a stamp?
Okay, seeing no other questions? Turn it back over to the clerk. Their desire to go in camera at this point in time? I don't, but
I'd like to ask a couple of
Okay.
questions, yeah.
so we'd like to make a motion to go into camera that's put forward by Councillor Gilroy. We'll call the question to go into camera. All
Privileged information.
Yes.
privileged information in camera. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's carried. So I'll just ask the gallery to clear the north committee room and we will take a brief pause here and then we will come back live once we've concluded our in-camera portion. Okay, welcome back to the appeal hearings for this meeting of Water, Waste and Environment on September 9th. We are now out of our in camera, there it is. And we're dealing with item number 2.
No, I think that the appellant have an opportunity to come
This
back.
is the clerk's walking us through here.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yes, the appellant is provided the opportunity to speak in rebuttal to comments made, but no new information is permitted.
All right,
Curtis, you have up to 10 minutes for your presentation.
thank you.
Thank you. I won't need 10 minutes. I could just put back my presentation. Thank you, councillors. Just want to respond to a few comments that come up that I've heard. There was a comment from Councillor Santos about there being no manholes on the properties, and if that was the comment that I made, then I misspoke, but I think what I mentioned is that there are no known manholes in any of the areas that are highlighted in yellow on the screen. There are I think 4 manholes that were previously identified by the department today, and that's consistent with our understanding as well. The comment was made that in regards to the Save Harmless agreement, that the city has this covered, has liability covered through its contract with its employees, and that may be the case. But it, God forbid, someone was injured. It may be that there's no need for litigation, but there would be nothing at law stopping that person from naming the owner or occupier or both to a legal action for compensation. And that's why, separate and apart from that process, and that's why one of the concerns we have that gives rise to our request for a Save Harmless agreement. And if it doesn't sound like there would be a principled objection to that, so to the extent the city will be accessing, any portion of this property, we maintain that there should be a Save Harmless in place to protect the owner in that scenario. And as it relates to the legal description being used, it sounds like that's just part of the practice, is to use the legal description of the property as sort of an address. However, the order does use that legal description and then gives it a definition of property, capital P, that the order then goes on to refer to as the city requiring access to. So that is the basis for our concern in terms of scope. Those were all my comments.
Thank you for those comments. Okay. Appreciate your time there.
Thank you.
Clerk?
So if there are motions,
Is there, the wording? I move that the receipt of public representations be concluded.
Favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
That the appeal be denied and order of the Director of Engineering Services, Water and Waste be confirmed.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's carried.
And that the appeal hearing be concluded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That is also carried. Thank you.
please note that the committee has made a final decision on this matter, which is not subject to further appeal.
Thank you very much. That deals with our appeals hearings for this meeting. We will now move into our reports. And I apologize before we do that. The clerk has been so kind to remind me that we do have a delegation to hear from.
So David Grant is joining us via Zoom. And David is speaking in support of reports 6 and 7 and in opposition to reports 1, 3, and 8. David, you have up to 10 minutes for your presentation.
Thank you. Let's see, find this thing. And I can see that your day is going to be a little longer than I expected with this.
Oh, don't count us out yet.
I know. And I'm hoping to be done in time because I have speaking to another committee at noon. Anyway, on topic 1, this agenda item bears significant cost, and you can read this stuff. I did submit most of these comments in writing, in money expended and staff time. Did the original proponent, this is a rhetorical question, calculate the cost benefit of gathering this info? Since knowing this info has no real bearing on deciding to actually reduce energy use, I ask, why are we doing this? Why do we not simply drop this action and work with the specialist professionals at Efficiency Manitoba to lay out a plan for energy use reduction in the city's buildings? Using this provincial department costs nothing and can lay out a solid plan for energy use reduction. The whole reason that Efficiency Manitoba was created several years ago was for this purpose, to help users of energy to reduce. If we're serious about greenhouse gas reduction and efficiency, this is the only practical route. Please don't ignore the suggestion. I think it's something simple that staff could do is contacting Efficiency Manitoba and working with them. On topic 3, the CSO plans. Once again, it's disappointing to see that the city is allowing verbal reporting instead of a written report. In effect, this hides what's going on from public scrutiny and comment. This topic is many months old. It could have been reported in writing in today's agenda if anyone had respect for the public and for all those election promises of transparency and open government. On topic 6 and 7, garbage collection is one of the key services provided by the city. Diversion of items for reuse has always been a good idea. Steps to facilitate an item finding a new user are also good. Not everyone can put an old mattress into their truck and take it to the dump or pay for it to be hauled away. If disposing of a mattress properly were simpler, we would have fewer in ditches and thrown over fences. Why has the city not been exploring the cleaning and reusing of furniture and mattresses? In many cities, there are successful cleaning services. Here in Winnipeg, we have cleanhomemanitoba.ca, I've heard, offering this service. One automatic process was featured on Shark Tank, where the mattress was sterilized, cleaned, and returned to the owner. Where damage is too severe, they can be taken apart and materials such as steel can be recycled. A few years ago in the news, we saw a company doing just that in Winnipeg. So private industry is addressing the situation, and I think that should be part of our strategy here. Good, clean mattresses can be offered for sale or donated to charities. We collect old food containers for reuse and recycling. Why are we not doing this for mattresses? Because a jar that goes in the garbage versus to recycling has a very tiny consequence, whereas a mattress sitting in a ditch is a mess to clean up versus it being collected properly by the city crews before it's soaked in the water in the ditch. Anyway, let's not be afraid to do the right thing with these things. And I think there's an opportunity here for the cleaning and reuse and for the dismantling. And I think that should be part of our strategy. That's my comment on that one. On topic 8, is there a lesson to be learned by this ongoing violation of normal purchasing practice? As I've explained before, you got here, Mr. Chair. When I worked at the West End Sewage Treatment Plant in Windsor, we owned all the equipment we used, minus the actual compressed gas tanks, or cylinders as they're called. When your contract engineers chose this sole source arrangement, where the provider of the essential equipment got, in effect, a lifetime contract to supply the material, did those contract engineers fully inform council of the implications of doing this in a way that I would say is wrong? It's certainly in violation of normal practice. Does the committee have evidence that they were warned? And that's about it. I'd prefer to have seen a system where the stuff on the wall, bolted to the wall, was owned by the city, as it was by Windsor, and the supplier just supplies bottles of oxygen. And anyway, that's my thought on it, and I'll let you get on with your meeting. Do you have any questions?
Thank you very much, Mr. Grant. Seeing no questions at this time, good luck in your next committee.
Okay, thank you.
That does it for our delegations today. Now we can move into our reports, starting with item number 1, building emissions reduction strategy.
Yeah, so Jeff Patton here is to present the notice of extension with.
Yep, so councillors, to the building emissions study, there's lots of work going on related to this report. We're asking for a further extension of up to additional 180 days be granted to report back. We're working on a number of key strategies for the report, but further discussion within the public service is required before reporting back to council. So we're asking for a further extension to complete the work and report back.
Just a quick question on this before I'm fine with the extension. Just curious, is this all city-owned buildings are we looking at? And are our general council of community centers, are they included in when you're looking at this?
So these would be city-owned and operated buildings, so these would be projects where we're accountable for the building. So in terms of community centers, likely not included at this time. But I'd have to go back to the project team. But certainly, there's a lot of our big wins could occur at some of our big facilities in terms of Pan Am Pool, libraries and other facilities. But certainly the intent of this is to look at city-owned and operated buildings. But we can look at scope and increase as we go, but that's the intent.
Yeah, one question. Have we looked at putting solar on the roofs of any of these buildings to reduce our energy usage?
So, Councilor, we did report back on solar use to this committee. I think it was last year. So we are looking at solar as an option, but certainly I think we disclosed in our previous reporting we need a positive business case before we do that. And in terms of where our energy use and the declining rate structure from hydro at this current time, it takes a fair bit of payback time to reduce electrical use, but certainly something we're looking at.
It's something I remember out in Calgary, they were doing it on a lot of the community centers, and it was a 10-year, I believe, payback, but that's a different rate for.
Completely different rate than Manitoba's rate.
Yes, okay, so you are looking into it, thank you very much.
For sure, yep, no, it's an option for us on many of our facilities, but we have to make sure that it makes sense.
So I guess I would like to see that our community centers are included. It may be something a little separate, like maybe there's the grant that goes to GWC, but these we own these buildings. And unfortunately, I'm learning that we're really letting them fall into disrepair. And I think that, as owners, we should be making sure that we're taking care of our buildings, and some of this retrofit might make sense in some of these really older buildings. So I'd like to move a motion that we add those. It might be a little bit seen as different in terms of the priority and stuff, but they are our assets, and I don't know why we're not looking at those buildings as well. And so there might be grant opportunities through GWCC if that's the way you want to kind of work that out. But they are our assets, and we should be including them in this. So I'd like to move that those get included.
Any comments? Would that be?
I'd have to take it back to the committee, to the project team to see. We can certainly look at them in a certainly generic, because of the fact that it would be, these are smaller buildings, smaller retrofits, not as complex, say, as a Pan Am Pool to look at building reductions. A lot of it's all tied to, and as we've indicated, we'll be coming back with a budget ask. Like all of these building emission reductions make them more energy efficient, come at a cost.
However, there are, I know RA Steam, they just had a major issue.
Yes.
In terms of some of this retrofitting would be a benefit at the time of the construction work. So I do see this as a priority, and there might be opportunities when we're having to go in and do the work anyways.
Yeah, if we're potentially doing building envelope work, so Councillor, to RA Steam specifically is a sewer issue, right?
Yeah.
In terms of that, but I certainly see an opportunity there that, but it's we only have limited funds, so we make sure that we're going to, if we want to look at improving energy efficiency or keeping a building open, we'll keep a building open before we do that. So we have to make those kind of judgment calls within the budget framework.
So I would like them included. I think it's important. There are buildings being owned, which should be part of how your matrix might change, but
Sure.
there are our assets, so.
So, are you saying that they are not, or they are being considered, or we need to find out more information?
I need a specific confirmation, or Becky can
That's okay.
assist me in terms of, but I'm
thinking we could probably have an answer if we were to lay it over. You're asking for 180 days, we could give you till the next meeting. to
We
find-
can certainly come back and I can provide a more fulsome update, but just to confirm the scope and just the staff who were available had to go to another meeting, so we've had a lot of, it's just busy time.
Okay, so I'll move that,
Yep.
I mean, we're extending it to hundred and eighty days.
Yep.
But with a report back in 30 days.
Verbal.
Verbal report back in 30 days about adding community, facility.
Yeah, I can speak to our staff and we can make sure to come back to the next committee meeting and provide that update to the committee. for sure.
Sorry, Counselor, so this is an item that will have to go up to council because the report back is due to council. So did you want the inclusion of that additional verbal report to this committee in 30 days as part of the recommendation?
No,
from
it
council,
could just
or
be a separate,
so you'd like to move it as a new business motion?
yeah, just, it's easier that way, it's cleaner.
Do we not have the opportunity to lay this over for 30 days?
You would be requesting the layover from council.
Oh, we don't know.
Can we do the 180 and then you put in a separate motion for 30 days for something like.
They want 180 days regardless, so
Yeah.
if we just lay over, then council will say yay or nay to it.
Okay, so the request to council is that the recommendation of the public service be laid over for 30
It's
days.
just you might get questions and they'd ask you why.
Well, the answer will be, to my understanding is that we'd like to know if community centers and to what extent they're involved in this. Yes?
Yep.
Yeah.
Fine with that. So just to lay over them,
Okay, so the request to council is to
lay over
matter
this
over
matter for 30 days. Yeah.
okay.
All right. So that's Councilor Miller. We're gonna lay over 30 days for the next meeting.
And do it again.
That's
Yeah.
Very good.
And
All in
30 days,
favor?
yes, for another.
Aye.
Opposed, that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Item number 2, waterway permit applications, Jan 1 to June 30, 2024, and asset management updates.
Go ahead.
Allison Davies, waterways technologist and acting riverbank engineer. We are riverbank engineer. Waterways permit application report, January to June. I think it's pretty standard, right? And then, asset management update. The word is just for information. See any questions?
Any questions on this? I see 55 applications are processed for this. Okay. Any motion here for us to receive this information?
Receive it as information.
Okay. Dobson, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, it's also carried. Very much. CSO tunnel construction and storage time.
Yes, this is a verbal report that was requested, I want to say two meetings ago. We ended up pushing it to this one because our last meeting there in June was quite tight for time, was very full. The request was basically to provide a quick overview on tunnel storage. Some folks have seen in the media and some other places where some significant CSO tunnel storage is being used in some other cities. And so the question was, we only really have one location in our preliminary master plan on there, use something like this. So we were asked to come back with kind of a high level overview of where they're good, what they're for, and some other examples and some backgrounds. So Ms. Weeb is here to do that.
Great, thank you. So transportation tunnels are really large diameter tunnels, typically 5 to 10 meters in diameter, so massive, 3 Cynthias tall, and super long, kilometers long. So they have a strategic purpose, but because of their size, they're also super deep. They're also very costly. So you want to make sure that if you're using them, you're applying the right technology to the right purpose. So we've been looking at these since we started our master planning back in 2013. We've talked to other municipalities, done some peer reviews, looked at life cycle costs, and really the key takeaway that we have is you really need to look to see if it makes strategic sense. So in the context of Winnipeg, at this point, we haven't included any major large transportation tunnels into our CSO master plan solution. Storage tunnels, sorry, my wrong word, for a number of reasons. First is it's very high capital costs. So these are, you know, in the order of $1 to $3 billion solutions that take 50 to 75 years to repay. So it's a major investment. It also takes a long time for them to be effectively used. So when you first put in this big tunnel, it's going to take time to connect everything in. So you've probably got about a decade before you've got something that's usable. They also have very high life cycle costs. So not just, you know, expensive to install, but because they're so deep, you're going to have, like, think of, you know, something 20, 30 meters deep. Anytime you need to repair it, it's going to be an undertaking. You need to have associated infrastructure with them, like lift stations. And it's also, what it's doing is it's taking all the wet weather flow. So you may need to consider things like upgrades to your treatment plant as well. You also want to look at, you know, the layout of your system to see if it makes sense. So, for example, here in Winnipeg, the Armstrong District, which is the next one we're starting to work on, has really high wet weather flows. It's close to the plant though. So location-wise, it would make sense to put in, you know, the storage and then send it. But with that much wet weather flow, you need to look at the cost benefits. So in this case, it makes much more sense to take that wet weather flow out of the system and use an application like sewer separation, which is what our plan for that district is. On the other hand, if we go to the upper end of the system, like our Mission district, it doesn't have as much wet weather flow, and logistically would make sense for that type of technology. Only we have a really long path back down to the sewage treatment plant. So from that perspective, it doesn't make sense. So you really have to use, you know, look at the overall strategic application. A big lesson that we've learned from looking at things and evaluating technology is that we want to use our system first. So you want to use the existing infrastructure and maximize it as much as possible, which is why we're looking at things like latent storage, inline storage. So they provide the lowest cost per benefit solution. And then the other reason why we're not looking really hard at using some of these storage solutions right now is that they don't provide the resiliency and the adaptability that other solutions like sewer separation provide. So once you build, you know, in today's, you know, in September 2024, we want to capture this type of storm, and it's going to take X amount of capacity. So we build it. 5 years down the road, climate change happens, and that storm is now, or we're getting more rain. So what we then have is, if we still want to meet our same control option, we now need to add another solution on top because we're getting more rainfall, and, you know, a finite, you know, infrastructure isn't sufficient anymore. The last benefit for taking the current approach towards separation versus something like the storage tunnels is that it doesn't provide the flexibility for changes to our environmental regulations. So right now we have an 85% capture. If we were to use hard infrastructure like storage solutions to meet that need, if that changes in the future, we now need to augment it. Whereas if we start from an approach of sewer separation, you know, getting that wet weather out, it doesn't matter if our regulations change, we've already taken that wet weather flow in the system. So, you know, it is a technology that is applicable for CSO work, but you just have to make sure that you really look at your local system and that it makes, you know, it makes sense for the system you're trying to do the work in at the current time. So that's just kind of like a brief view of what we've, you know, kind of the view that we've taken on it. Our approach right now really is separation first. So we're getting those heavy wet weather flows out. It makes sense for Winnipeg. We will maximize the use of our existing system. And again, like we're continually looking at, you know, options and infrastructure technologies that are out there, and we'll continue to modify our approach, you know, as things move along. So that is a really quick overview. Any questions?
Any questions?
So moved. Thank you.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? That's carried. Thank you very much. Clean Technology Grants Program.
Yes, we have another verbal report. This was requested at the last meeting, and it's related to the grants. I guess it was prompted by the Winnipeg Fire Paramedic Service. They had a project that used some of this grant. So we were asked to come back and kind of give a high level overview, verbal overview of the grants that are available. And so Mrs. Becky Raditz is here from Office of Sustainability to provide an update.
Okay, thanks. I'm going to talk a bit about the Manitoba Merit-Based Program. As Tim was mentioning, some of the additional funding opportunities we keep an eye on. I'm going to touch a bit on delegated authority to be able to apply for and receive grants from recent reports to council, and then I'll tell you a little bit about the fire paramedics project. Of course, that I don't want to steal their thunder, but I can talk a bit about that. So the Manitoba Merit-Based Program was launched in spring of 2023. So it supports building and process improvements that reduce greenhouse gas emissions and the use of fossil fuels. It's funded partly by Canada's Low Carbon Economy Fund and the province of Manitoba. So it's administered by the province of Manitoba. So in this past spring, the provincial and federal governments did a joint announcement on the projects that did receive funding. And in this new Manitoba Merit-Based Program, the applications were open up until January of 2024. So the Office of Sustainability supports any department and their applications for funding. And we keep an eye out on potential funding programs like through Federation Canadian Municipalities, but we don't have a dedicated resource to searching out and applying for funding. We did work with Fire Paramedic Service and Assets and Project Management to put together an application for the amalgamated fire station, which is currently under construction in Windsor Park. We did speak with other departments and looked at potential applications, but because of the restrictions and timing, and especially for construction timing, the fire station was the only one that went forward. And we're waiting to hear if there will be a round 2 of this merit-based program. So the fire paramedic station, this is amalgamating services of Station 9 and Station 15, and it's going to be on the former start site of Station 15. And the construction started in July of 2023, and it's expected to be complete in November of this year. So the reason why this project was able to apply for and receive funding is because it will include geothermal heating and cooling capabilities. And that system is going to be commissioned anticipated by the end of this month. And so just to touch a little bit on delegated authorities. So in May of 2022, council approved the fire paramedic station being able to apply for funding for that project. There's also a delegated authority related to applying for up to $500,000 each to support implementation of the Winnipeg Climate Action Plan and the Community Energy Investment Roadmap. So that's the delegated authority to the CAO. And related to the building emissions reduction strategy, with which Jeff Patton was here talking about today, there is delegated authority without a dollar cap to support the implementation of that strategy. was complete.
Receive this as information.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Much carried. Okay, all right, so we got number 5 here, water bill protection.
Yes, this is a written report, not a verbal report. Yeah, so this report has an review of our support for low income customers. Back in February, the SPC asked us to report on this, kind of give an update. We are committed to doing this in the city's poverty reduction strategy implementation plan. So one of the goals in that overall city plan was to expand the supports for low income or the affordability concerns for water and sewer bills. So that plan commits us to doing this, and this report was to kind of come back to this committee and let you know where we're at and what we do. So the report does summarize like both what we're doing right now, like our existing assistance programs or approaches, but also the stuff we're working on ongoing to improve it. So basically, like right now, I mean, and most of you probably know this through different touch points with constituents from time to time, but we do offer things like flexible payment arrangements, like when someone has needs to take time to pay an outstanding bill. We do work with customers to pay over time or pay installments and this kind of stuff. So that's one thing we do. We also are partnered with this H2O, this Help to Others H2O program, run through the Salvation Army, where different through an application process administered by the Salvation Army program director, there is funding available to directly pay some bills. There's a water leak credit policy that's a little bit different. It's not so much targeted at an affordability issue. It's just that sometimes water leaks can be massive water bills, legitimate water bills still, but the water leak credit policy endorsed by council gives us a mechanism to basically bill a customer what they would have had in normal use versus this huge leak. Under certain circumstances, you have to be the homeowner, you have to be resident, you have to have actually had a leak and repaired it, that sort of thing. But that process does help because some of those water leaks can be very, very significant water bills, and it can be shocking sometimes for folks. So
In order to qualify for that, do you have to have had your meter reading?
within a certain time period, like
Like a year.
I think it's a year. We're the bylaw says we're supposed to have access there, at least once a year. A company meter reading has on the meter, but calling in meter reads, like some folks aren't necessarily as diligent in calling in frequent meter readings, and that can happen. That can get away on people. But if there is a qualifier there, I believe it's a year that you've had at least call in it. I mean, so, and part of that is just to try to, it's due diligence. So you got to kind of watch you're responsible for your plumbing in your house, and if you're not paying attention to it, if you're not living there, your way, there's going to be consequence of that. Sorry, we also can refer customers to some other social programs that are available, things like Jordan's Principle. This sort of thing can apply in some situations. So we're trying to build awareness of that with our customer base and our staff. Some of the things we're working on, like we're working towards with the improvement, that Help to Others program I just mentioned currently has a capped amount. Part of our adoption of that service was to review that amount, the dollar amount, periodically, and we're going through different rate reports lately, and so we want to make sure that that's still a applicable number. So we're reviewing those numbers. Something that isn't straight financial change, but is certainly an improvement is accessibility. Like the accessibility to some of these programs we're reviewing them with the intent to try to improve this in terms of making them more simple to access, making the applications more clear or easy for people to understand. Also, maybe less detailed, some of the different, you know, procedures you had to qualify for on these, like producing certain parts of documentation, this kind of stuff, might not necessarily be relevant anymore. And so we're trying to improve the application process to help it be used or at least available to people who need it. So that's a really important improvement. And part of that also blends into what we're doing online. We're trying to make more online services available, different payment methods available. That sort of, all these little things can add up to help people manage, you know, when the water and sewer bills are. And I know this might sound like I'm trying to talk about it every chance I get, but it's true. I am. Our AMI program, our meter upgrade program will actually have a direct impact on helping folks with affordability. The automated meter reads, the regular reads, the system reads, and put us into, you know, more frequent reads, get people you know, a true accounting of their water use more frequently, so bills don't get away on them. Can also detect leaks quite early. So that's that sort of thing. Proactive monitoring with that sort of frequent meter read can help reduce those huge bills. So AMI I had to sneak it in here. Sorry. Yeah. So that's we did the report also includes a bit of an industry scan. Like we wanted to compare what other utilities, municipalities do, and it turns out we are right in line with what other cities are doing. And other utilities, I mean, Hydro is in up to it as well. So that's all in the report.
Just one question. I'm sorry. Okay. Question that I have is that it'd be interesting to see if the city would be able to, like, when we're doing a new road and we're doing the new pipes and people need that front line replaced and if the onus is on them to do that. Has the city ever looked at being able to like cover those costs and then provide that on the bill, on the water bill, so it's more affordable? Because a lot of people can't necessarily just go to the bank for a loan or, you know, but being able to opt into that program while the street's open just makes total sense financially, but it could be a hardship for families. So has the city looked at maybe providing money up front and then collecting, even if it's a charge of interest, to be able to you know, that to make it affordable, especially in more in areas where they can't just necessarily go to the bank?
For sure, that's a really good point. That can be a large expense outlay that we do try to at least coordinate the opportunity with homeowners. I guess the short answer is I think we've sort of talked about that in the past in terms of lead services, like in terms of trying to provide an opportunity for homeowners to change, get rid of their lead their portion of the lead service. We obviously never got to that point where we were going to do that. It could be part of our discussions further as we go through a new lead control program. Like right now, we use orthophosphate to line the pipes and that sort of thing. But as the lead regulations change, you know, that conversation probably would come back into play. Anyway, short answer is no, we don't.
Can we then maybe just motion that you have those discussions, at least report back? I know we can't really make that decision. That would have to come back, but I think that that's really important. Like when we're talking about lead and, you know, not to say that the city's gonna like, you know, pay for it, but like maybe front the cost and then like charge a fee. That's something we can direct you to look into.
We can look into it and maybe like report back to committee or just report back.
Yeah, just, yeah. Like if you're looking at it, fine. I just don't want that to get lost, because that is, most of this is going to be in inner city areas where the lead pipe issues are happening. And it's going to be in areas where it will be a hardship for people to come up with the money to.
I know some municipalities do partner with like almost like a home insurance company where you can make certain arrangements, commercial arrangements with to promote certain company, through the city's kind of endorsement to help people do these renewals or service line warranties, that kind of thing. Like, we have talked about those in part of our planning for lead services. So I'd say that the discussion, it's in the mix of the discussion, but we certainly haven't come to any conclusion. There's no recommendation in the budget for it or anything.
So maybe just kind of report back to us, maybe a verbal report, just maybe in a few months, would you need?
I'd like to give us kind of a budget window, so
Okay, so-
so in like in February, February.
Okay.
It's 90 days.
Yeah, just a verbal report back on that initiative and
120 days, I think is, yeah, sorry,
If you want February, you could just say
February, at least. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Councillor Wolf.
to report back on the ability for, that's why he wants it after the budget comes out, but to report back on the ability for us to look at seeing how we can help with the people to get rid of their, was it lead pipings?
Sorry, I couldn't.
Lead pipe water service lines.
Provide a verbal report to the committee in February on the ability for the city to do what with the lead pipe water sewer line?
Assist
in
in
customer
the
payment.
and removal of lead pipe service lines.
Oh,
Yeah. Maybe the financial
Yeah.
costs.
What kind?
I wouldn't say assist, because I don't believe that you should be, like, I want to clear, especially if VPC's listening, that I don't think that we should be paying for it, but that maybe we provide funding up front and then onto the water bill, a fee, right? So, not a grant, but
Like your hot water tank.
yes, that's kind of what I'm looking at.
payment options you're looking?
Yeah. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah.
So payment options
Yeah.
for customers pursuing the removal of lead. Sorry, lead pipe sewer lines?
No, water, the water.
Oh, actually, I thought,
Water-
I heard sewer and then I thought, this is water.
Service.
Okay. Thank you.
We have any other programs like this?
Local improvement.
I was gonna say, it sounds like a local improvement, but
Yeah,
it's.
that's outside, like streets, lights, not so much underground infrastructure.
This is like more of a, it's not an efficiency, but provincial.
We used to have like a water conservation, I guess it's not.
I mean, I'm thinking like hydro, you're replacing the furnace.
Providing credits for local toilets, I mean, this is, you mean like a being a bank, you're basically. For folks, right?
I don't know, it could be that, it could be like, kind of like hydro, or you pay it and then you know.
So
But
that's.
I guess we call it a grant, but it's not really, because people are paying for it, on their own, but, yeah. Like, what are our other cities doing? Are other cities doing that?
Sure.
Yeah, like,
That'd be part of it.
part of the
Yeah,
looking
like
into
that,
it, yeah.
Okay,
Like, maybe we can't do anything.
and that's a separate motion? That's not part of this, or is?
You could
It
move
could
it as
be,
part of this. It could be that the report be received as information and then further
Yeah,
direct.
okay, good.
You had a comment there, Councilor Santos?
Yeah, just a couple of questions. Thank you for the report. Tim, really appreciate it. I remember, I believe it was Councilor Allard had moved it through his community committee, and then we slightly amended it to kind of align with the poverty reduction strategy in February. So I just had some follow-up questions, and maybe you can answer, maybe you cannot, but try to do your best. The H2O Help Others program, do you happen to know number of applicants that have actually come through? You had issued, I noticed it like earlier in the report, you'd issued like 900,000 water bills out of those, per month. how many applicants have actually come forward with this H2O help? Do you know that number? Do you know that data?
Yes, well, no, not the number of applicants, but I know the total dollar value.
Yeah, perfect.
Because, and just to remind, like the dollar value, the calculation that the Salvation Army does, includes number of people in the home and some other factors, but it's capped at like the max you can get is if you have 5 people in the home, it's like $400. So the total amount in the total credits applied under this program in 2023 was $10,328. So there's some people are using it, but it's not a whole lot.
No, that's for the full year.
That's for the full year of 2023. So that kind of ties into part of that accessibility improvement. Like we're maybe not.
And that's tied to my next question with the website and application form. I think Councilor Laura had brought up, and I've noticed there were a lot of barriers to it and in applying, and it was very complicated and there were some challenges there. So you had mentioned here, you're going to clarify eligibility. I believe there'll be changes to the website to improve readability and accessibility. Form layouts will be updated to provide more clarity on the policy. Can you give me a time frame of when those updates are gonna happen to the webpage? Like you're saying you're gonna do it, but then I want to know what's your time frame. Like you've done all the searches and you know you're gonna make some improvements. I just like to know what that time frame is. Are you looking at end of year to do those changes, to implement those changes, or are you looking at 6 months? Do you know?
I know some it's underway, but I'd have to get back to you on the actual dates. I would assume.
So they're underway, but we don't know when that's gonna be completed. Okay, and then my next question, similar to the same, you had mentioned here, applications to the program are currently administered by Salvation Army. Discussions are underway to align the process with a similar initiative by Manitoba Hydro. Can you give me an example? Like, what does that look like? I don't know what other similar initiatives by Manitoba Hydro I don't know. I'm not familiar with their programming. So can you give me an example of how we are planning to align?
Hydro has a similar, like with Salvation Army, a bill assistance program, same thing. I don't think it's called H2O. It's not the water, but their access point, we want to make sure that we're not reinventing the wheel in terms of however they, maybe they want to improve their access form as well, or maybe we can coordinate with them and have one access point for together. If a customer is accessing help for their hydro bill, maybe they need help for their water bill too. So we can kind of get them at the same time. But yeah, same answer about the timeline. I'm not sure where we're at with that.
Okay.
And I have to get back to you.
Okay, and then payment gateway project. Happy to see that options besides cash and check. We're gonna start accepting Visa, like credit card payments. That's really good. What's our time frame on that?
So I don't have, I know that we made significant progress on that, but in this winter, I'll have to get back to you on these 3 timelines.
Yep, no worries. Okay. If the chair will enlighten me, I'd like an amendment to the motion that a verbal report would come back in 6 months on the implementations of some of these things that the administration has committed to, and it's just like a verbal update on where things are at with specific to 4.2 and 5.4.
We could do that, obviously, and we probably should do that to this committee, just to these specific items, but just for full disclosure, these activities will also be reported on through the operating reduction strategy update, which is sure which committee it was to. So EPC, okay, so but it'll be somewhere in that big report, whereas we could come back to this committee with these specific highlights.
Okay, I was just more looking for, will that report talk about timeframes of implementation?
Well, now.
Because I'd like to see that timelines of implementation. Like, it's nice to see it on paper, but I think, to hold us accountable, to ensure that things do, I know it's more work for you, Mr. Shanks, but I always appreciate that. I'm just looking for kind of more clarity on timeframes, if that's okay. So I'm okay if you're gonna tie it in with the poverty reduction strategy, EPC, or you can just kind of cut and paste and have, you know, a verbal report to our committee on that, because it could get lost in the weeds. There's gonna be a lot to be read in that poverty reduction strategy.
Yeah, absolutely fair point. Like I'll get you the timelines separate from the committee. They'll send the email to the committee members, but timelines as soon as you can. But yeah, we can do a follow-up report specific to this committee about these things to keep the focus of this committee for these things. So when do we want to do that?
When is Councillor Gilroy, when's your kind of report or verbal report you're asking for in your lead stuff?
That was February.
Do you want to do it at the same time?
Sure.
If you're tying it into this report, I'm
Sure.
okay with that.
Makes sense.
Is that enough time?
But you want this written, right? You want a written report? We can do a written report.
Written or verbal? It's fine. I'm just looking for timeframes and updates. That's it. Verbal is fine.
Is it okay if that's the same item or like one item that encapsulates all of it?
It's
Sure.
sure.
Or would you like, just so we know when we prepare the agenda?
I think it has to be two items because one's a specific kind of add-on to what they're doing. And the other ones are like stuff that they're doing, but they're just trying to implement better service for that. So, yeah.
Any other questions on this item? Just wanted to follow up on Councillor Santos's comments when I read this. The thing that stuck out to me most was the H2O program, and to be quite honest, how underutilized it is. You know, my first thing is we have initiatives, but I think in the most immediate timeframe here, we have the province come out with X amount of dollars for video surveillance that they were going to award to residents. I think it would be helpful if we promoted these types of programs on X amount that we would be allowing up to for these, and hopefully we could see those that are unable to pay for these necessary costs to be further driven there. We can't make them fill out the application, but we can definitely make people aware of those. So we have a amendment then to this, and that's all been captured.
Yes, so as I understand it, it's concurring in their recommendation with amendments to receive the report's information, request that the public service provide a verbal report in February on payment options for customers pursuing the removal of lead pipe water lines, and direction to public service to provide a verbal report in February on timelines for the implementation of the following initiatives: updating H2O Help to Others program website and application form, that was 4.2. And the payment gateway project. Which is that?
Yeah, so 4.2 and 4.3 and 5.4.
Oh, sorry, and 4.3?
Yeah, there's
Okay.
3 of them that were quote underway. Okay, yeah. Thank you.
Okay, and that's moved by Councillor Gilroy.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That is carried. We'll move on to item number 6. Award of contract for provision of collecting large items, which is commonly referred to as bulky waste. And I've added large item, bulky waste as well. Contract tender number 53-2024.
Yes, this is a regular contracting work for that service. It's already contract. This includes, so it's a 5-year contract. Should say that. That's why it's at SBC. It's over 5 years and the dollar value. I just wanted to highlight like this. This does include because it's scheduled bulky pickup. Like when you try to get rid of your couch and you call us up and schedule it, we'll pick up that additional item that doesn't fit in your bin. But this also includes abandoned waste pickup, the on-demand stuff we do, the sweeps, this sort of thing, and this budget amount. It does include the increased hours that council approved through the 2024 2025 6 budget. So this includes like a doubling of those hours. So I thought I would point that out. It's funded by the operating budget. It's included in all the forecasts.
Great. So the good news coming out of this is that we're essentially doubling our efforts to clean up year round.
Year round.
Good news.
One question, if I may. When I call and ask for a bulky pickup, this is not part of it.
Yes, this is part of
This
it.
is part of it. So when I ask, and it's $10, I think, for the pickup? Or whatever it is.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, and I've done that numerous times, by the way. And
So-
Service has been really good.
This is not limited to problem areas either,
No,
but there is a coordinated effort to, if we do need to be in those areas. You know, we were talking about spring thaw,
My wife.
ta-da, here's all this garbage. Okay, great.
So I'll move this. I also too want to raise though, every time that we do add a contract on, I'm realizing the challenges that we have with garbage, and part of it is we have no in-house equipment. So I want to raise that, like I do support this because I know, you know, how much this means to my community. But the fact that we don't have the ability to go and pick something up ASAP because we don't have our equipment is a huge concern. And I think quite frankly, and a really big issue that we're seeing right now with some of the garbage issues we have within our city. So I do support it, I'm happy to move it, but want to raise that we are contracting the service out because we don't have our own equipment to do the work. So, and that's concerning.
So just to that point, I appreciate the willingness to move this. I do believe that we are using in-house equipment through Public Works.
for some of that, not on this contract, but some of the, some public works equipment is used.
Okay.
But that's why we can't streamline our garbage services because we have parks, we have water and waste, we have public works, and it's a major issue in terms of cleanliness in our city. So I feel that it's a challenge. So just wanted to raise that because I think it's important for us to understand that we, you know, who's providing the service does matter.
Councilor Gilroy, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's also carried. Moving on to number 7, textile donation bins at City of Winnipeg owned properties.
I have a question regarding this one. Just in terms, do we do textile recycling? Like at our depots, do we?
No, I don't believe you can put textiles in the bin.
So we don't have any textile, like where, you know, clothes are soiled and stuff, so they can't go to Salvation Army or whatever. They're damaged. There's no recycling of that material.
At our recycling, like our contracted recycling.
Yeah, I thought one time a City of Winnipeg textile recycling, and it had nothing to do with Canadian diabetes or, so I'm just curious.
Yeah, there are options in like non-city options. There are entities that do recycle material
Okay.
for textile material or take material to resell or to process into different stuff. But I'm pretty sure we don't accept it in their blue bins right now.
Okay.
But so we do have sprinkling of partnerships, informal agreements with like Diabetes Canada and some of these other, I believe we listed some of them here, for to receive these materials at like some community centers or this sort of thing. What this report is doing here is getting permission from council for us to formalize some, there are no costs, but it's to formalize some agreements to like formally expand some of these things to the 4R depots so that folks coming to the 4R depot already can now bring textiles and put them in these bins, but also to kind of clean up some of these other city facilities where we have some bins on agreement and some bins by third party agreement and that sort of thing. So that there is a list of some other locations we have in here
Yeah,
already.
because there has been, so with this, we're granting you authority, so, I really like the idea, that's gonna be a 4R depots, that's excellent if we're gonna do that, so kudos to you guys. And then say there's an issue, say that there's this health and safety issue, around a bin. Like, you know, a lot of people sometimes go through the bins,
Right.
like when fire, say there's an issue in a particular area that the bins are being placed. Legally, are we allowed, like, can we get the city to remove those bins? The ability to remove the bins?
If they're not on city property, you mean, or?
Well, if they're on, no, this is
Yeah.
for city property, right? So I call you and I say, I'm having an issue with the bin.
Yeah.
Can I have you remove it?
Yes, I believe so. I mean, that's.
Yeah, we're gonna have the ability to
Yes.
do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and some of these bins, like some of the ones they've have in, I've seen in like private parking lots and all stuff like that.
Right,
are
yeah.
really neatly designed, like they're kind of, yeah, like you're in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Once you're in, you're in.
Yeah, so there's a concern of that kind of stuff, like people sleeping in them and stuff. But just so I'm clear that when we're granting you authority, we also can remove them if the city deems that
Yeah.
they're not safe or if other issues are arising from them.
I believe he's, in my porch, I don't see him.
Zoom meeting.
Sorry, Mike's on Zoom here. He could answer that if I've incorrectly answered that. Mike, did you hear that question? Maybe he didn't.
Yeah.
That's okay.
That's right.
So and just on the back on the textile, just because we have lots of, Mike could probably answer this one too for me, so.
Yeah, part of the reason we want to get these formalized and the agreements formalized, it will give us that potential. We will use city staff to monitor the locations that we enter into the agreements with, as well as Diabetes also has staff that will do their best to try and maintain and make sure their cleanliness around them and maintain them properly. So, but this is just more of a way for us to formalize it and bring it to your attention that we are doing this and getting the authority for the delegated authority as well as to get approval to move forward with this and expand it.
And then another question I have, you over the textile, just trying to solve the problem around in the inner city when we're doing lots of cleaning on the streets and stuff, we get overabundance of, and a lot of it is textile, like a lot of it is like clothing, but like it's so soiled or whatever, it can't really be donated. Is there ability for us to put this someplace? Like, can the city, instead of it going into our landfill, the ability for us to recycle this somehow?
I would have to look into that, but usually, typically, when it gets to that point where it's soiled as bad, like the type I've seen what you're speaking of.
Yeah.
Most times it would just end up in a waste bin and end up in a landfill. But I can get our staff to have a look into it and get back to you on that. But because it would really, I know with mattresses, even when you get some, I know with our agreement with Mother Earth, they have the ability to take really badly soiled mattresses and they will actually put them through for like bed bugs and stuff. They will put them through a decontamination process before they recycle it, so that the material that they recycle can be used or reused. But I'd have to look into this on the textile piece. Usually, typically, when they're that badly soiled, they will end up in a landfill.
Okay, as long as if that's the route of, if that's the way we're going, that's fine. It just kills me every time because of it's so much of it going into a landfill. But yeah, I don't need a report back. If you can just get it back to me, Michael.
Okay, sure, I can.
So I know if I'm doing the right thing when I'm cleaning up these.
No, and it's a great question, Counselor. No, I got no issue. I'll get back to you on that. Thanks.
Okay.
All right. I guess just one comment, it's identified in recommendation number 3 around, the vagueness of donation bin agreements with other nonprofit textile recycling providers to permit textile donation bins. I think it's also important that although, Canadian Diabetes and these other larger organizations are doing great work, they do recycle some of these clothes and then charge individuals to purchase it back, where we do have a community that is in desperate need for clothing that is strictly donation and no transaction of monetary funds is required. So I think that we should keep that in mind when we're entering into these donations. Yeah, so I know that when you come from a large household who is fairly affluent and have a lot of clothing to donate, especially to youngsters out there, it's should be your first choice. But with that, do we have a mover? Thank you, Counselor Dobson. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that's carried. We'll move on to item number 8.
This is the single source negotiation for supply of the liquid oxygen at the north end sewage treatment plant. I believe we were just talking about liquid oxygen at the water treatment plant last year, at some point. This is not there. This is at the sewage treatment plant. So, you might recall, that discussion before about supplying and the, vendor owning the equipment on site or producing it on site, this sort of thing. A lot of the same details apply here, but there are some differences. So in this case, we have a manufacturer of, you know, a long time has been there. There's only a couple of people in town, literally, I think two outfits in town that supply, that are able to supply liquid oxygen. And we have a long time contract with one of them here. They own this equipment. It's at the end of life. If you think about this, we started this in the 1980s and had several extensions. The wrinkle here is that we are moving towards upgrades in the plant where we won't need this liquid oxygen on the plant anymore. So at some point, we're not going to need this equipment. So when it comes time to renew this contract, which we're doing right now, we're asking to renew it for another 5 years. We did look at, you know, three different options. We looked at just buying bulk locally on demand. There isn't a local supplier that can do that once we need. We looked at building new equipment, like we could tender this out for a completing tender and build a new equipment. That we would end up being on the hook, paying off all that capital cost in the next 5 years, because by 2030, we're expecting not to need this at all. So the last option would be negotiate with extending the existing contract. That's what we went with. So that's the report before you today. What else can I say about it? It's as required. It's a volumetric cost. So it's up to $12 million over the life of the contract.
Isn't that the only company we can work with too? From my recollection?
Yeah, Praxair, I believe here in this location, yes.
Yeah. Happy to move it. I'll move it.
Mr. Gilroy. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that is also carried. Our second last item of the reports is item number 9.
Yes. This is a NUPIC contract over expenditure. I hate saying that word here, but that's what it is. It's over expenditure number 11 for the Headworks project. Now, if you may recall, we've come to you before with some of these. There's a summary of them in the report. Basically, this is for $200,000. And it's kind of wrapping up some of the soil testing work. We've previously talked about this before, how some of the soils encountered on site were contaminated, and it's classified as a over expenditure to pay for these. We do have the budget for this. We're still within the project budget. But if you may recall, when we awarded this project at the beginning, the council let us delegate it up to $10 million cumulative in authority to the CEO. So once we're past $10 million cumulative in scope changes and extra work, change orders on this project, we have to come back to council. So even though it's only $200,000, we've already, we're past the 10 million and so here we are. Yeah, so that's just some perspective. The original contract for Headworks was $272 million. We've had 56 million added. A lot of that was that interceptor failure and some schedule implications for it. And we've talked about that at length here before. But, end result, we're at about 328 million here and we still have 53 million left in the
So
budget.
it's still well within our contingency for this scope of the project.
And
as we was here to answer any questions about the soils themselves.
I just have one around, I guess, the soil itself. So again, minuscule 200 in the grand scheme of things in this project, although taxpayer dollars, I want to be cognizant of that in all of our decisions. But at the end of the day, how would they have not considered this contaminated soil, considering where it's located, and that essentially, as I've been told, everything's flowing to this point. How does soil not become contaminated?
Yes, we did do a phase one environmental assessment, and that didn't identify any contamination in the soil. So, that's what the decision to not include soil contamination in base cost. We have gone to a phase three assessment on the biosolids, so following this, lessons learned. So this won't be the case for biosolids.
So moved.
Counselor Dobson, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's also carried. So our final item of this afternoon now is item number 10.
This is the Southport, or Centerport South, not Southport, Centerport South Force Main Award. So, the regional water and sewer servicing is the responsibility of the city here. This particular contract, you will see other contracts, coming to SBC for this. This one is specific for the force main construction. That's a sewer, infrastructure pump sewer. It's $21.6 million for this award. Since it's over 5 million, we need your approval. That was competitively bid. I do want to point out that it's 1% under the pre-bid estimate. So this was not no construction inflation here. So far so good. These projects have been approved. So that's the good news story there. Made up our team there, Greg? Right there.
Yeah, no questions for me, other than that, they've started already, have they not? Or
Not for this contract,
not
but
for this contract?
for the other
but
contracts.
For the other contract, because they're already doing the 600 millimeter pipe, they're looking at it right now.
That's the interceptor rate.
Water line.
It's the, I believe, yeah, the feeder main they started with.
Yeah.
And then that's been awarded, the interceptor's been awarded, this is the third, and then we have the lift station.
Okay, so I would like to move this up.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that's carried.
Adjourn.
Move to adjournment. Counselor Gilroy, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's carried. We adjourn for September 9th, Standing Policy Committee on Water, Waste and Environment. Thank you.